I never meant to reveal who I really was that evening. For 3 years, I had lived quietly as Emma, a regular office worker married to Joseph Zhang. His mother, Eleanor Zhang, often reminded me how ordinary I was and how unworthy I was of her son or their supposedly prestigious family. If only she knew the truth. That night was meant to be Eleanor's big moment. It was the grand opening of the Zhang family hotel, their first luxury property. Eleanor had spent months boasting about it, telling everyone that their family was finally rising to Shanghai's elite. What she didn't know was that the towering 68-story hotel actually belonged to my family's company, Chen International Hotels. We had allowed their small company to manage it as a test to see if they were capable of handling more properties in the future. 4 months, I had quietly watched Eleanor strut around like she owned the world, bossing around staff and making poor decisions. Still, I kept my promise to my father, the CEO of Chen International. He always said, "Learning comes best through experience, my little butterfly," using his favorite nickname for me. That night, Eleanor had planned a grand celebration in the ballroom, full of glittering chandeliers and Shanghai's wealthiest people. I stood by Joseph, wearing a plain black dress that Eleanor had already mocked as looking cheap. "Can't you at least try to look like you belong here?" she had snapped while adjusting her fancy gown. "This is an important night for our family." She only used our family when she needed something from me. I stayed quiet as Eleanor mingled with guests, introducing Joseph to potential investors and leaving me behind. Joseph's sister, Isabella, wasn't much better. She flaunted her new fiancé, a banker, making sure everyone knew he drove a Mercedes. "Emma, be a dear and get me some champagne," Isabella called out loudly enough for the guests to hear. "Isn't that what you used to do as a waitress?" I had never been a waitress, but Isabella enjoyed spreading lies about my so-called humble past. I got her champagne without a word, reminding myself of my father's advice to stay patient and observe. The tipping point came during Eleanor's speech. "Welcome, dear guests, to the crown jewel of the Zhang family empire," she said, beaming with pride. "This hotel represents our commitment to excellence and luxury. My son Joseph will take over as general manager, with the help of his," she hesitated, her smile stiffening, "wife." She made the word wife sound like something dirty. "Though, perhaps," she added, pretending to sound concerned, "we should consider whether someone with more polished experience might be better for the role. Our guests expect nothing but the best." The room grew quiet and awkward. Joseph fidgeted beside me but, as always, stayed silent. Isabella took her chance to add insult. She grabbed the microphone. "Mother's right. Emma's not exactly what you'd expect for a top hotel like this, is she? I mean, look at her dress," she said, laughing as champagne splashed from her glass. "Maybe she should start in housekeeping instead." That's when my phone buzzed. A message from my father. "The board has seen enough. Time to wrap this up. Little butterfly." 3 years of observations. 3 years of notes about their management style, their treatment of staff, their financial decisions. 3 years of watching Eleanor and Isabella's arrogance grow along with their ambitions, all leading to this moment. I stepped forward, my heels clicking on the marble floor. The sound echoed through the suddenly silent ballroom. "Actually," I said, my voice clear and confident, "I do have some hospitality experience." Eleanor's face darkened. "Emma, don't embarrass yourself. Chen International Hotels," I continued, watching their expressions. "Perhaps you've heard of us? 47 luxury properties across Asia? This building is our 48th. Isabella laughed nervously. "What are you talking about? This is our hotel, is it?" I smiled, reaching for my clutch. "Let me introduce myself properly. I'm Emma, daughter of James Chen, CEO of Chen International Hotels. For the past 3 years, I've been evaluating the Zhang family group's potential as property managers for our expansion projects." I pulled out my business card, not the simple one I'd been using, but my real one, Executive Director, Chen International Hotels. Eleanor's face went pale. "That's impossible," she whispered. "You're lying." "Am I?" I nodded to the ballroom entrance, where my father had just arrived with our board of directors. "Perhaps you'd like to ask him yourself?" The room erupted in whispers. Joseph stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Isabella dropped her champagne glass, the crystal shattering on the floor. 3 years of documentation," I continued, my voice carrying across the silent room. 3 years of watching you mistreat staff, make poor financial decisions, and demonstrate exactly why you should never be trusted with a luxury property." Eleanor stumbled forward, her designer dress suddenly looking cheap in her desperation. "Emma, darling, we were just joking. You know how much we love having you in the family. The board has made its decision." I cut her off. Zhang Family Group's management contract is terminated, effective immediately. Our own management team will be taking over operations tomorrow morning. Isabella screamed. You can't do this. We invested everything. You invested nothing. I corrected her. Chen International paid for everything. Your family was merely testing a management position. A test you failed spectacularly. The ballroom had become a theater of shocked faces and furious whispers. Shanghai's elite loved nothing more than watching the mighty fall, and the Zhangs were falling hard. Joseph finally found his voice. Emma, why didn't you tell me? I turned to my husband, seeing the confusion and hurt in his eyes. Would it have changed anything? Would you have stood up to them? Protected me from their constant insults? His silence was answer enough. Mr. Chen, Eleanor rushed toward my father as he approached. There must be some mistake. We can explain. My daughter's reports have been quite thorough, my father said coldly. 3 years of documented mismanagement, harassment, and poor decision-making. The board's decision is unanimous. I watched as everything Eleanor had bragged about, everything she'd built her ego upon, crumbled around her. Isabella was sobbing, her mascara running down her face. Their carefully cultivated image of wealth and sophistication shattered like her champagne glass on the marble floor. Security will escort you out, I said quietly. You have until tomorrow to remove your personal belongings from the management offices. As security approached, Eleanor's face contorted with rage. You deceived us, pretended to be poor, infiltrated our family. I stepped closer, my voice low enough that only she could hear. No, Eleanor, you showed me exactly who you are. I just watched and took notes. The security team led them toward the exit, Isabella's wails echoing off the marble walls. Joseph stood frozen, torn between following his family and staying with his wife, the woman he'd finally realized he didn't know at all. I turned to address the gathered crowd, channeling every lesson in poise and leadership my father had taught me. Distinguished guests, please enjoy the remainder of the evening. Chen International Hotels welcomes you to our newest property. The band resumed playing, waiters circulated with fresh champagne. The elite of Shanghai resumed their conversations, now with juicy new gossip to discuss. My father touched my shoulder gently. Well done, little butterfly. I watched Joseph finally follow his family toward the exit, shoulders slumped in defeat. 3 years of marriage ending with a walk of shame through our hotel lobby. But as I stood in that glittering ballroom, my true identity finally revealed, I realized this wasn't an ending at all. It was just the beginning. The next morning would bring new challenges, restructuring the hotel's management, damage control with the press, and inevitably, divorce proceedings. But for now, I allowed myself to feel the satisfaction of justice served. Eleanor had always said I wasn't good enough for her family. She never stopped to consider that her family wasn't good enough for me. The morning after the grand opening, Shanghai's social media exploded with news about the Zhang family's humiliation. Videos of Eleanor and Isabella being escorted out by security had already gone viral on WeChat, but I had more important things to focus on. I arrived early at the hotel, wearing one of my real designer suits, Chanel, not the department store clothes Eleanor had always criticized. The staff gathered in the lobby looked nervous, unsure about their futures under new management. Good morning, I addressed them, my voice firm but kind. I know last night's events have left you with questions. First, let me assure you that your jobs are secure. In fact, many of you will be receiving the raises that Mrs. Zhang repeatedly denied, despite my recommendations. The relief in the room was palpable. I'd spent 3 years quietly noting which employees worked hardest, who showed real talent for hospitality, who needed more training, and who had suffered most under Eleanor's tyrannical management style. Miss Chen, my assistant Lucy approached, tablet in hand. She'd been one of my father's most trusted employees, planted as a junior receptionist to help monitor the situation. The Zhangs are in the management office, refusing to leave. They're demanding to speak with you. Of course they were. When I entered the office, Eleanor, Isabella, and Joseph were going through files, desperately searching for something they could use as leverage. This is corporate theft, I said calmly, watching them freeze. Security has already documented your actions. Corporate theft? Eleanor spun around, her perfectly styled hair now disheveled. Everything in this office belongs to the Zhang family. Actually, I held up my phone, displaying the management contract. According to Section 7.2, all operational documents, files, and data are property of Chen International Hotels. Your access expired at midnight. Isabella slammed a drawer shut. You think you're so clever, don't you? Tricking us for 3 years, playing the poor little wife. I never tricked anyone, I replied, You assumed I was poor because I didn't flaunt wealth like you do. You assumed I was beneath you because it made you feel superior. Those were your choices. Joseph finally spoke up. Emma, I know I should have defended you. Can we talk privately? Maybe work this out? I studied my husband's face, still handsome, but now I could clearly see the weakness in his character that I'd tried to ignore for 3 years. Our marriage was a management evaluation project that's now complete, I said coolly. My lawyers will contact you about divorce proceedings. Divorce? Eleanor shrieked. You can't divorce him. Do you know what this scandal will do to our family's reputation? I raised an eyebrow. Your reputation was built on lies and pretense. I simply revealed the truth. The truth? Isabella laughed bitterly. The truth is you're a spy, a deceiver. Wait until the press hears how the mighty Chin family conducts business. Go ahead, I smiled, pulling out another document. But first, you might want to review the confidentiality agreements you signed 3 years ago. The ones that prevent you from discussing any aspect of your relationship with Chin International Hotels. The penalties for violation are substantial. Eleanor snatched the document, her face paling as she read. They had signed everything without reading the fine print, too eager to prove themselves worthy of managing a luxury hotel. You can't do this to us, she whispered. We'll be ruined. You did this to yourselves. I corrected her. Security will escort you out. Again, try to maintain some dignity this time. As they were led away, Joseph lingered at the door. I did love you, Emma. No, I said softly. You loved the idea of me, the quiet, submissive wife who tolerated your family's abuse. That person never existed. After they left, I spent the morning in meetings with department heads, outlining the changes needed to bring the hotel up to Chin International standards. By afternoon, social media was buzzing with a new twist. Leaked documents showing Eleanor had been inflating occupancy reports and Isabella had been charging personal expenses to the hotel accounts. I hadn't leaked the documents, but I wasn't surprised when Lucy told me that several former employees had chosen to share evidence of the Zhang's mismanagement. Karma has a way of compound interest. A week later, I was reviewing the hotel's improved performance charts when my father visited my office, the same office where Eleanor had once held court like a queen. The board is impressed, he said, studying the numbers. Revenue up 40% in just 7 days, staff turnover down to 0, guest satisfaction scores climbing. Amazing what happens when you actually know how to run a luxury hotel, I smiled. And the Zhangs? I pulled up a report on my laptop. Eleanor and Isabella were seen shopping at a discount mall yesterday. Apparently, their credit cards were declined at their usual luxury boutiques. Joseph's applications to other hotel groups have all been rejected. Seems no one wants to hire a manager who didn't notice his own hotel wasn't really his. Father chuckled. You know, when I suggested this undercover evaluation 3 years ago, your mother thought I was crazy. Let her run the Hong Kong property instead, she said. Why make her suffer through this charade? Mom never did enjoy the investigative side of business. I grinned. But you taught me well. Sometimes you have to let people reveal their true nature before you can make an informed decision. And your true nature? He asked softly. Are you ready to reveal that to someone new? I knew what he meant. The press had been speculating about my newly single status, and several prominent business families had already made inquiries. One day, I said, turning back to my work, but right now, I'm exactly where I need to be. That evening, I stood at the hotel's rooftop bar, watching the sunset paint Shanghai's skyline in gold. A server brought me a glass of champagne, the same expensive brand Isabella had always insisted on drinking to prove her sophistication. My phone buzzed with a message from Lucy. Mrs. Zhang spotted trying to make dinner reservation, claimed she's still owner's mother-in-law, was escorted out. I smiled, sipping my champagne. Eleanor never did know when to admit defeat. Another message popped up, this one from my mother. Saw the latest numbers. Proud of you, darling. By the way, the Lee family's son is back from Harvard Business School. I turned off my phone. Mom never could resist playing matchmaker. The truth was, I didn't need a man to complete my story. I was Emma Chen, daughter of James Chen, trained since childhood to recognize true value in properties, in people, and in myself. Eleanor had spent 3 years trying to tear down my confidence, never realizing she was up against a lifetime of preparation for leadership. Isabella had mocked my simple clothes, not understanding that true power doesn't need designer labels to prove its worth. And Joseph had chosen silence and comfort over standing up for what was right. In the end, that choice cost him everything. As I watched the city lights begin to twinkle on, I thought about Eleanor's favorite phrase, appearance is everything. She was wrong. Character is everything. Integrity is everything. The truth, no matter how long it takes to come out, is everything. My phone buzzed again, a photo from the management team at our Hong Kong property, showing their record-breaking occupancy numbers. Beat this. Shanghai. Read the caption. I grinned, already planning improvements. Eleanor might have thought she was teaching me my place in the world, but she'd actually taught me something far more valuable. Never underestimate a woman who appears to have nothing. She might just own everything you think is yours. The end. P.S. 6 months later, Eleanor and Isabella were seen working as sales clerks at the discount mall. Apparently, their new manager is very strict about punctuality and proper behavior toward customers. Sometimes karma comes with a name tag and an employee discount.
The lipstick on Nathan's collar wasn't mine. I stared at the incriminating smear of red, my heart pounding in my chest. How many times had I washed his shirts without noticing? This time, though, the evidence was unmistakable. I heard the front door open, and Nathan's voice called out, "Sophie, I'm home." Quickly, I shoved the shirt back into the laundry basket and plastered on a smile. "In here, honey?" I called back, my voice steadier than I felt. Nathan appeared in the doorway of our bedroom, his tie loosened and a weary smile on his face. "Long day at the bank," he said, leaning in to kiss me. I turned my cheek at the last second, and his lips grazed my skin instead of meeting my mouth. "Everything okay?" he asked, frowning slightly. I nodded, perhaps a bit too enthusiastically. "Just tired. How about I start dinner while you freshen up?" As I busied myself in the kitchen, my mind raced. Who was she? How long had this been going on? The questions swirled in my head like a tornado, threatening to sweep away everything I thought I knew about our marriage. The sound of Nathan's phone buzzing on the counter snapped me back to reality. I glanced at the screen, seeing a message preview from someone named Olivia. My stomach clenched. "Hey, Soph," Nathan called from upstairs. "Have you seen my blue shirt? The one I usually wear on Thursdays?" I froze, my hand hovering over the phone. I think it's in the wash." I managed to reply, my voice only slightly strained. "Damn," he muttered, coming down the stairs. "I wanted to wear it tomorrow for the big presentation." As he entered the kitchen, I quickly turned back to the stove, stirring a pot of pasta sauce with unnecessary vigor. "I'm sure you have other shirts that look just as nice," I said, trying to keep my tone light. Nathan came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. I stiffened involuntarily. "You okay, babe?" he asked, his breath warm on my neck. "You seem tense." I turned in his arms, forcing myself to meet his eyes. "Nathan," I began, my voice barely above a whisper, "is there something you want to tell me?" His brow furrowed in confusion. "What do you mean?" Just then his phone buzzed again. We both glanced at it, and I saw panic flicker across his face as he registered the name on the screen. "Who's Olivia?" I asked, my voice steadier now, fueled by a growing anger. Nathan's arms dropped from my waist, and he took a step back. She's just a colleague," he stammered. "We're working on a project together." I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that surprised even me. A project that requires late-night text messages and lipstick on your collar? The color drained from Nathan's face. "Sophie, I can explain." "Save it," I cut him off, holding up a hand. "I don't want to hear your excuses right now." I turned off the stove and grabbed my purse from the counter. "I'm going to my dad's for a while. Don't wait up." As I walked out the door, leaving Nathan calling after me, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Anger, hurt, and betrayal. Yes, but also a sense of clarity I hadn't experienced in years. For the first time in our marriage, I held the upper hand. Driving to my father's house, I realized this was just the beginning. Nathan's betrayal had awakened something in me, a determination to reclaim my life and my dignity. As I pulled into my childhood driveway, I made a silent vow. Nathan would regret the day he ever underestimated me. I spent a restless night at my father's house, tossing and turning as my mind raced with questions and plans. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I couldn't confront Nathan outright. Not yet. I needed proof, undeniable evidence of his betrayal. "You look like you've been through the ringer, sweetheart," Dad said as I stumbled into the kitchen. He pushed a steaming mug of coffee towards me. "Want to talk about it?" I shook my head, managing a weak smile. "Not yet, Dad, but thanks." He nodded, understanding in his eyes. "You know I'm here when you're ready." As I sipped my coffee, a plan began to form. I'd start by tracking Nathan's movements, piecing together the puzzle of his deception. It wouldn't be easy, but I was determined. I returned home later that morning, steeling myself for the confrontation. Nathan was waiting, his face a mask of concern and guilt. "Sophie, I'm so sorry," he began. "It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything." I held up a hand, silencing him. "Save it, Nathan. I need some time to think." His relief was palpable, and it made my blood boil. He thought he was off the hook. Over the next few days, I played the part of the dutiful, forgiving wife, but beneath the surface, I was gathering intel. I installed a tracking app on Nathan's phone while he slept, noting his frequent late nights at the office. I combed through our bank statements, finding suspicious charges at upscale restaurants and hotels. One evening, as Nathan prepared for another work dinner, I decided to follow him. I watched from my car as he met a sleek blonde outside a trendy bistro. Olivia, I presumed. My hands shook as I snapped photos with my phone. As they disappeared inside, I felt a tap on my window. I jumped, turning to see a concerned-looking woman peering in at me. "Are you okay, honey?" she asked. "You look upset." I realized tears were streaming down my face. "I'm fine," I managed, wiping my cheeks. "Just watching my husband with another woman." Her expression softened with understanding. "Oh, sweetie, I've been there. It gets better, I promise." As she walked away, her words echoed in my mind. It would get better, but not the way Nathan expected. The next day, I decided to dig deeper. While Nathan was at work, I searched his home office. In the back of a drawer, I found a burner phone. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the messages, each one a dagger to my heart. "Can't wait to see you tonight, baby. Last night was amazing. When can we do it again? I wish I could wake up next to you every morning." I was so engrossed in reading that I didn't hear the front door open. Suddenly, Nathan was there in the doorway, his face a mix of shock and anger. "What the hell are you doing?" he demanded. I held up the phone, my voice surprisingly steady. "I think I should be asking you that question, Nathan." He lunged for the phone, but I dodged him, backing away. "How long?" I asked. "How long have you been lying to me?" Nathan's face crumpled. "Sophie, please. It's not what you think." "Don't you dare," I shouted, my composure finally cracking. "Don't you dare try to gaslight me, Nathan. I've seen the messages, the hotel charges. I saw you with her last night." His eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed. "You followed me?" he hissed. "What gives you the right?" "What gives me the right?" I laughed bitterly. "I'm your wife, Nathan. Or have you forgotten that in your rush to get into Olivia's bed?" We stood there, the air crackling with tension. In that moment, I saw Nathan clearly for the first time, not as the charming man I'd fallen in love with, but as the selfish, arrogant person he truly was. "This isn't over," I said quietly, pocketing the burner phone. "Not by a long shot." As I walked out of the room, leaving Nathan sputtering behind me, I felt a strange sense of calm. The truth was out, and now the real battle could begin. As I sat in my father's workshop, surrounded by the comforting smell of sawdust and varnish, memories of the past flooded my mind. I remembered the day I first met Nathan, how charming and attentive he'd been. Now, those memories felt tainted, like looking at an old photograph and realizing it had been a lie all along. "You've been awful quiet, Sophie," Dad said, setting down his sander. "Still not ready to talk about what's going on?" I sighed, running my fingers along the grain of a half-finished table. "I've been thinking about when Nathan and I first got together," I admitted. "How different things were then." Dad's face darkened. "That boy never did right by you, if you ask me." "What do you mean?" I asked, surprised by the vehemence in his voice. He hesitated, then said, "Remember that first Thanksgiving he came here? When I was showing him around the shop?" I nodded, the memory suddenly vivid. Nathan had seemed so interested in Dad's work, asking questions and admiring the craftsmanship. "Well," Dad continued, "after you went inside to help your mother, he changed, started making snide comments about quaint little businesses and how I should sell out to some big corporation." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "He said that? Why didn't you ever tell me?" Dad shrugged, his weathered hands fidgeting with a piece of sandpaper. "You seemed happy, and I didn't want to cause trouble, but I never forgot it." As Dad spoke, other memories surfaced. Times when Nathan had made subtle digs at my family's background, always couched in jokes or backhanded compliments. How had I been so blind? "There's more." I said quietly, and found myself pouring out the whole story, the affair, the evidence I'd gathered, the confrontation. When I finished, Dad was silent for a long moment. Then he stood, walked over, and enveloped me in a bear hug. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart," he murmured. "You deserve so much better." As I cried into his flannel shirt, I felt a new resolve forming. Nathan hadn't just betrayed me. He'd looked down on my family, on the hard-working people who'd raised me. That was unforgivable. Later that evening, I returned home to find Nathan waiting, a bouquet of roses in hand. "Sophie," he began, his voice pleading, "can we talk? I know I messed up, but I love you. We can work this out." I looked at the flowers, remembering all the times he'd used grand gestures to paper over his mistakes. "Put those down, Nathan," I said coldly. "We need to have an honest conversation for once." His face fell, but he set the roses aside. "Okay," he said, sinking onto the couch. "I'm listening." I took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about our relationship, about who you really are. And I realized something. You've never respected me or my family, have you?" Nathan's brow furrowed. "What are you talking about? Of course I respect." "Don't lie," I cut him off. "I know what you said to my father that first Thanksgiving. I know about all the little comments, the way you look down on where I come from. He had the grace to look ashamed, at least. Sophie, that was years ago. I've changed. Have you?" I challenged. "Or have you just gotten better at hiding it? Because the man who could cheat on his wife and lie to her face doesn't seem very changed to me." Nathan stood, his face flushing with anger. "Now wait just a minute. You're not innocent in all this, you know. Always so focused on your family, never really fitting in with my world." His words confirmed everything I'd been thinking. "Your world," I repeated softly. "That's the problem, isn't it? There's your world, and then there's mine, and you've never really wanted to be part of mine." We stood there, the weight of years of unspoken resentments hanging between us. In that moment, I knew our marriage was over, not just because of the affair, but because of the fundamental disconnect that had always existed between us. "I want a divorce, Nathan," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside, "and I'm not going to make it easy for you." His face paled. "Sophie, don't be hasty. Think about what you're saying." But I was done listening. As I turned and walked out of the room, I felt a strange mix of sorrow and liberation. The life I'd thought I wanted was crumbling, but from the ruins, I would build something stronger, something true to who I really was. The day after I told Nathan I wanted a divorce, his parents called. I stared at the caller ID, my stomach churning. In all our years of marriage, I'd never felt truly accepted by them. Taking a deep breath, I answered. "Sophie, dear." Margaret's saccharine voice dripped through the phone. "We heard you and Nathan are having difficulties. We'd like you both to come for dinner tonight." I almost laughed at the understatement. Difficulties didn't begin to cover it, but I agreed, knowing this confrontation was inevitable. As Nathan and I drove to his parents' sprawling estate, the silence between us was deafening. I gazed out the window, remembering all the times I'd felt small and out of place in their world of country clubs and charity galas. Richard and Margaret were waiting on the front steps, perfect smiles plastered on their faces. Margaret air-kissed my cheeks, her eyes critically scanning my simple dress. "Oh, Sophie," she sighed, "I do wish you'd let me take you shopping sometime." I bit back a retort, following them inside to the formal dining room. As we sat down to a meal that probably cost more than my father made in a week, the tension was palpable. Richard cleared his throat. "Now let's discuss this misunderstanding between you two." "Misunderstanding?" I echoed, incredulous. "Your son cheated on me, repeatedly." Margaret waved a dismissive hand. "Men will be men, dear. The important thing is maintaining appearances." I felt my blood begin to boil. "Appearances? Is that all you care about?" Nathan shifted uncomfortably. "Sophie, please." "No, Nathan," I cut him off. "I want to hear what your parents think is so important about appearances." Richard leaned forward, his voice low and threatening. "Listen here, young lady. We've worked hard to build our family's reputation. We won't have you dragging the Prescott name through the mud with some tawdry divorce." "Tawdry?" I repeated, my voice rising. "Your son is the one sleeping around." Margaret skied. "Really, Sophie, there's no need for such vulgar language. Perhaps if you'd been a bit more accommodating to Nathan's needs, this wouldn't have happened." I stood up so quickly my chair toppled backward. How dare you, I hissed. I have bent over backwards trying to fit into your world to be the perfect wife, and this is what I get. Nathan reached for my arm. Sit down, Sophie. You're embarrassing yourself. I yanked away from him. No, Nathan, I'm done being embarrassed. I'm done trying to live up to your family's impossible standards. I turned to his parents, years of pent-up frustration pouring out. You've never accepted me, never thought I was good enough for your precious son. Well, guess what? He's not good enough for me. Richard's face turned an alarming shade of red. Now see here. But I was on a roll. No, you see here. I'm filing for divorce, and I don't give a damn about your reputation. Nathan can have Olivia, and you can have your perfect, classist little world. I'm done. I stormed out, leaving them all sputtering behind me. As I walked down the long driveway, I heard footsteps behind me. It was Nathan. Sophie, wait, he panted. You can't just walk away like this. I spun to face him. Watch me, Nathan. I've spent years trying to be someone I'm not for you and your family. No more. His face hardened. You'll regret this, Sophie. You've got nothing without me. His words hit me like a slap, but they also ignited something deep inside me. You're wrong, Nathan, I said quietly. I've got myself, and that's more than enough. As I walked away, leaving Nathan standing in his parents' driveway, I felt a strange mix of terror and exhilaration. I had no idea what the future held, but for the first time in years, I felt truly free. Back at home, I sat at our kitchen table, my hands shaking as I picked up my phone. It was time to make some calls, to a divorce lawyer, to my father, to the friends I'd neglected over the years. As I dialed the first number, I knew my life was about to change dramatically. But I was ready to reclaim my identity, my dignity, and my future. The fertility clinic waiting room was eerily quiet, filled with couples avoiding eye contact, each lost in their own private hopes and fears. I sat alone, clutching my purse, wondering how I'd ended up here again. Mrs. Prescott, the nurse called. I flinched at the name, still not used to the idea of shedding it. Dr. Patel greeted me with a sympathetic smile. Sophie, it's been a while. How are you doing? I swallowed hard. I'm going through a divorce, actually. Her eyebrows shot up. I see. And you're still interested in pursuing fertility treatments? The question hung in the air, heavy with implications. Was I? The truth was, I didn't know anymore. For years, trying to conceive had consumed me, defined me. Now, everything was different. I'm not sure, I admitted. I guess I just needed to know my options. Dr. Patel nodded, her expression kind. Well, let's review your test results from last time, shall we? As she pulled up my file on her computer, I found myself thinking about all the times Nathan and I had sat in this office, holding hands, putting on brave faces as we received one disappointing update after another. How much of that had been real, and how much had been just another performance for him? Sophie? Dr. Patel's voice snapped me back to the present. Are you all right? I realized there were tears streaming down my face. I'm sorry, I mumbled, reaching for a tissue. It's just a lot. She reached out, patting my hand. It's okay. This is an emotional process for everyone, even in the best of circumstances. Taking a deep breath, I asked the question that had been gnawing at me for years. Dr. Patel, was it me? Was I the reason we couldn't conceive? Her brow furrowed. Sophie, fertility issues are complex. It's rarely just one person's fault. She hesitated. Your tests always came back normal. It was Mr. Guy Prescott who had some challenges. The revelation hit me like a thunderbolt. All this time, Nathan had let me believe it was my fault, had let me feel broken, inadequate. The injustice of it burned in my chest. He never told me, I whispered. Dr. Patel looked confused. He assured me he'd discussed it with you. Sophie, I'm so sorry. I assumed you knew. I stood up abruptly, nearly knocking over my chair. I have to go. I'm sorry. I can't be here right now. I fled the clinic, gasping for air as soon as I hit the sidewalk. My phone buzzed in my purse. A text from Nathan. Where are you? We need to talk about the house. Anger surged through me. How dare he act like everything was normal, like he hadn't been lying to me for years about something so fundamental. Before I could stop myself, I was dialing his number. He answered on the second ring. Sophie? What's going on? You bastard, I hissed. You let me think it was my fault we couldn't have a baby. Wes, do you have any idea what that did to me? There was a long pause. When Nathan spoke again, his voice was cold. Who told you? It doesn't matter, I snapped. What matters is that you lied. Again, about something huge. I was protecting you, he said, but his tone was defensive. I didn't want you to feel. Don't you dare try to justify this, I cut him off. You weren't protecting me. You were protecting your ego. I ended the call, my hands shaking. As I stood there on the sidewalk, passers-by giving me concerned looks, I felt something shift inside me. The last lingering doubt, the tiny part of me that had wondered if I was making a mistake by leaving Nathan, evaporated. My phone buzzed again, another text from Nathan. We need to talk, come home. I stared at the message, a strange calm settling over me. Home. That house hadn't felt like home in a long time. Maybe it never really had. With sudden clarity, I knew what I had to do. It was time to stop reacting to Nathan's lies and manipulations, time to take control of my own story. I texted back a single word, no. Then I called my father. Dad, I need your help with something. It's time for me to make a fresh start. As I walked away from the fertility clinic, I felt lighter than I had in years. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, it felt full of possibility. I stood in front of the charming 2-story house, my father beaming beside me. The fresh paint gleamed in the sunlight, and flower boxes hung from every window. It was perfect. Well, what do you think? Soft? Dad asked, barely containing his excitement. It's beautiful, Dad, I breathed, but I can't possibly accept. He waved away my protests. Nonsense. I've been saving this lot for years, waiting for the right moment. And with everything you're going through, well, I thought you and Nathan could use a fresh start. My heart clenched at the mention of Nathan's name. Dad didn't know about the divorce yet. I hadn't found the courage to tell him. And now, faced with his incredible generosity, the words stuck in my throat. Let's go inside, Dad said, pulling out a set of keys. Wait till you see the kitchen. As we toured the house, my mind raced. How could I tell him the truth now? How could I break his heart after he'd poured so much love and effort into this gift? My phone buzzed insistently in my pocket. Nathan, again. I'd been dodging his calls since our confrontation about the fertility treatments, but I knew I couldn't avoid him forever. Everything okay? Dad asked, noticing my distraction. I forced a smile. Just work stuff. Don't worry about it. We were in the master bedroom when I heard the crunch of tires on gravel. Looking out the window, my stomach dropped. Nathan's sleek black car was pulling up. Dad, I said urgently, I need to tell you something. But it was too late. Nathan's voice boomed from downstairs. Hello? Anyone home? Dad's face lit up. Perfect timing. Now we can surprise both of you together. Before I could stop him, he was heading downstairs. I followed, my heart pounding. Nathan stood in the entryway, his eyes widening as he took in the house. When he saw me, his expression hardened. Sophie, finally decided to answer my calls, I see. Dad looked between us, confusion creeping into his features. Is everything all right? Nathan's charm switched on like a light. Of course, sir, just a little miscommunication. What's all this about? As Dad launched into an explanation about the house, I watched Nathan's face. I could see the calculations happening behind his eyes, the dollar signs practically visible. This is incredibly generous, Nathan said smoothly. We can't thank you enough. We need to talk, I hissed, pulling Nathan aside while Dad busied himself in the kitchen. About what? Nathan asked innocently. About how you've been avoiding me? Or about how you're clearly hiding things from your father? I felt my anger rising. Don't you dare try to turn this around on me. You're the one who's been lying for years. Nathan's voice dropped to a menacing whisper. Careful, Sophie. You wouldn't want to make a scene in front of Daddy, would you? Especially after such a generous gift. I recoiled, seeing the true Nathan emerge. Manipulative, cruel, and utterly self-serving. Everything okay in here? Dad called from the kitchen. Fine, we both answered in unison, plastering on fake smiles. As we rejoined my father, Nathan slipped his arm around my waist, playing the part of the devoted husband. I felt sick. So, when can we move in? Nathan asked eagerly. Dad beamed. As soon as you'd like. I've already had the utilities set up in your names. I felt the walls closing in. This house, meant to be a symbol of love and new beginnings, was quickly becoming a trap. Actually, Dad, I started, my voice shaking. There's something I need to tell you. Nathan squeezed my waist painfully. What Sophie means is, we're overwhelmed with gratitude. Aren't we, darling? I looked between my father's hopeful face and Nathan's warning glare. In that moment, I realized the true cost of staying silent, of playing along with Nathan's charade. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about protecting my father, about standing up for the truth. Taking a deep breath, I stepped away from Nathan. "No," I said firmly, "that's not what I mean at all." Both men stared at me, shock evident on their faces. I squared my shoulders, ready to finally speak my truth, no matter the consequences. "Dad, Nathan and I are getting a divorce, and there's a lot more you need to know." The silence that followed my declaration was deafening. Dad's face crumpled in confusion, while Nathan's eyes blazed with fury. "What are you talking about, Sophie?" Dad asked, his voice trembling. Nathan stepped forward, his charm cranked to maximum. "Now, Sophie, let's not be hasty. We're just going through a rough patch." "No," I cut him off, my voice stronger than I felt. "No more lies, Nathan. Dad deserves to know the truth." I turned to my father, my heart breaking at the hurt in his eyes. "Dad, Nathan's been cheating on me, for months, maybe years, with a woman from his office named Olivia." Nathan's facade cracked. "You can't prove anything," he snarled. "Actually, I can," I replied, pulling out my phone. "I have texts, photos, hotel receipts, but that's not even the worst of it. I told them everything about the fertility treatments, about Nathan's lies, about his family's constant belittling." With each revelation, Dad's face grew darker, while Nathan's turned an alarming shade of red. When I finished, Dad stepped between us, his voice low and dangerous. "Is this true, Nathan?" Nathan's eyes darted between us, calculating. Then, shockingly, he laughed. "So what if it is? You really think your precious little girl is so innocent? She's been snooping through my things, following me around like some kind of stalker, and now she's trying to manipulate you with this sob story." I felt like I'd been slapped. "How dare you?" "No, how dare you?" Nathan shot back. "You think you can just throw away everything we've built over a few harmless indiscretions?" "Harmless?" I echoed, incredulous. "You've been lying to me our entire marriage." Nathan's face twisted into a sneer. "And what about this house, Sophie? Were you planning on telling your father you want a divorce before or after you accepted his generous gift?" Dad held up his hands. "Now wait just a minute." But Nathan was on a roll. "You know what? I think I deserve this house. After putting up with your family's working-class drama for years, it's the least I'm owed." Something inside me snapped. All the pain, all the humiliation, all the years of trying to be good enough, it all came pouring out. "You don't deserve anything," I hissed. "Not this house, not me, not one single thing my family has given you." I turned to Dad, tears streaming down my face. "I'm so sorry, Dad. I should have told you sooner. I was just ashamed and scared." Dad pulled me into a fierce hug. "Oh, sweetheart, you have nothing to be ashamed of." Nathan scoffed. "How touching. Well, I hope you're both prepared for a fight, because I'm not walking away from this empty-handed." As if on cue, a car pulled up outside. We all turned to see a sleek convertible, Olivia at the wheel. Nathan's eyes widened in panic. "Olivia?" She stepped out of the car, confusion evident on her face. "You texted me to meet you here. Said you had a surprise." Her eyes darted between us. "What's going on?" I felt a surge of unexpected pity for her. "He's been lying to you too, Olivia. Just like he's been lying to all of us." Nathan's composure finally shattered. "You're all insane. I don't have to stand here and listen to this." He stormed towards Olivia's car, but Dad blocked his path. "Oh no, you don't. You're not going anywhere until we sort this out." Nathan's face contorted with rage. He shoved my father, hard. Dad stumbled, nearly falling. Before I knew what was happening, I was between them, my hand connecting with Nathan's face in a resounding slap. The shock of it seemed to freeze time. We all stood there, breathing heavily, the weight of everything that had happened pressing down on us. In that moment, I realized this was it, the point of no return. Whatever happened next would change all of our lives forever. I took a deep breath, squaring my shoulders. "Nathan," I said, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside me, "I think it's time we finish this, once and for all." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal meetings, heated arguments, and painful revelations. But as I sat in the courtroom, waiting for the judge to deliver her final verdict on our divorce proceedings, I felt an unexpected calm. Nathan's lawyer had fought tooth and nail, trying to claim half of everything, including the house my father had gifted us. But I had come prepared. The evidence I had gathered of Nathan's infidelity, combined with the testimony of his own parents about his behavior, had painted a damning picture. In the matter of Sophie Adams versus Nathan Prescott, the judge began, her voice echoing in the silent courtroom. I held my breath, feeling my father's reassuring hand on my shoulder. As the judge read out her decision, I watched Nathan's face. With each ruling, the division of assets, the nullification of his claim on my father's gift, the alimony payments he would owe, his arrogant mask crumbled a little more. When it was over, Nathan stormed out without a word, but I felt no satisfaction in his defeat. Instead, I felt free. Outside the courthouse, I was surprised to see Olivia waiting. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "I'm sorry," she said simply. "I didn't know about any of it. The lies, the manipulation. I feel like such a fool." I nodded, understanding all too well. "We both were, Olivia, but not anymore." As she walked away, I turned to my father. "Dad, I can't thank you enough for everything you've done." He pulled me into a bear hug. "That's what family is for, sweetheart. Now, what do you say we go home?" Home. The word held new meaning now. Not the cold, pristine house I had shared with Nathan, always feeling like an outsider, but the warm, loving home of my childhood, where I could heal and rediscover myself. Over the next few months, I threw myself into helping with Dad's construction business. The work was hard, but satisfying. With each house we built or renovated, I felt like I was rebuilding a part of myself. One crisp autumn day, as we finished up a project, Dad turned to me with a twinkle in his eye. "You know, Soph, you've got a real knack for this. Ever thought about taking over the business someday?" The idea took root, growing stronger with each passing day. I enrolled in business classes at the local community college, determined to learn everything I could. A year to the day after my divorce was finalized, I stood in front of a mirror, hardly recognizing the woman looking back at me. Gone was the meek, insecure housewife. In her place stood a confident businesswoman, ready to take on the world. My phone buzzed with a text from Dad. "Big meeting today. You've got this, kiddo." I smiled, feeling a surge of gratitude for his unwavering support. As I drove to the meeting, a potential major contract that could take our family business to the next level, I passed by my old neighborhood. There, on the corner, was Nathan. He looked older, tired. For a moment, our eyes met through the car window. I saw a flicker of recognition, then regret, pass over his face. But I felt no anger, no desire for further revenge. Nathan's true punishment was living with the consequences of his actions. My revenge, if you could call it that, was living my best life without him. As I pulled up to the office building for my meeting, I took a deep breath. This was it, the moment I'd been working towards. But more than that, it was a symbol of how far I'd come. I thought back to that day in the new house when I'd finally found the courage to speak my truth. It had been terrifying, but it had also been the first step towards reclaiming my life. Stepping out of the car, I straightened my jacket and lifted my chin. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I was ready to face them. Because now I knew my own strength, and nothing, not Nathan, not his family, not society's expectations, could ever take that away from me again. With a smile on my face and determination in my heart, I walked into the building, ready to write the next chapter of my story, on my own terms. The shrill ring of the doorbell pierced the silence of my grief like a knife. I knew who it was before I even opened the door. Elizabeth, my mother-in-law, stood there with her lips pursed and eyes narrowed. It had only been 3 days since we buried Mark, and already she was here to disrupt what little peace I'd managed to find. "Clara," she said, her voice as cold as the autumn air that swept in behind her, "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." I stepped aside, allowing her to enter. "Of course not, Elizabeth. Please come in." She strode past me, her heels clicking against the hardwood floors Mark and I had chosen together. I followed her into the living room, where she perched on the edge of the sofa, her back ramrod straight. "I suppose you're wondering why I'm here," Elizabeth said, her gaze sweeping critically over the room. I sank into Mark's favorite armchair, running my fingers over the worn fabric. "I assumed you wanted to check on me. It's been a difficult few days." Elizabeth's laugh was sharp and humorless. "Oh, my dear, I'm not here to coddle you. I'm here to discuss the house." My heart skipped a beat. "The house? What about it?" Well, now that Mark is gone, we need to sort out the living arrangements. After all, this house belongs to the family. I frowned, confusion settling over me like a heavy blanket. I'm not sure I understand. Mark and I bought this house together. We built our life here. Elizabeth leaned forward, her eyes glinting. That's where you're mistaken, Clara. The house was left solely to Mark, not to you. Didn't he tell you? The room seemed to tilt on its axis. That's impossible. We saved for years to buy this place. We picked out every fixture, every paint color together. Oh, you poor, naive girl, Elizabeth said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. Mark may have let you believe that, but the truth is, this house has always been in the family. His father left it to him in his will. I shook my head, struggling to process her words. No, that can't be right. Mark would have told me. Elizabeth stood, smoothing her skirt. Well, he didn't. And now that he's gone, we need to discuss your living situation. After all, you're not really family anymore, are you? Her words hit me like a physical blow. I rose to my feet, anger burning through the fog of my grief. How dare you? I was Mark's wife. I cared for him after his accident. I gave up everything for him. And now he's gone, Elizabeth said, her voice flat. Your duty is done. It's time for you to move on. I clenched my fists, fighting to keep my voice steady. This is my home, Elizabeth. I'm not going anywhere. She moved towards the door, pausing to look back at me. We'll see about that, Clara. I suggest you start packing. You'll be hearing from our lawyer soon. The door slammed behind her, leaving me alone in the sudden silence. I sank back into Mark's chair, my mind reeling. How could this be happening? How could Mark have kept such a secret from me? I glanced around the room, taking in the photos on the mantel, the throw pillows I'd embroidered myself, the bookshelves Mark and I had filled together. This was our home, our life. And now, in the blink of an eye, it was all slipping away. As the reality of my situation began to sink in, I felt a resolve hardening within me. I wouldn't let Elizabeth bully me out of my own home. I wouldn't let her tarnish the memory of the life Mark and I had built together. I reached for the phone, my fingers trembling as I dialed. Aunt Martha? It's Clara. I need your help. You won't believe what Elizabeth just told me. I closed my eyes, letting the warm sunlight wash over me as I sat on the porch swing. The gentle creaking of the chains transported me back to happier times, when Mark and I would spend lazy Sunday afternoons out here, dreaming of our future. Clara, honey? Mark's voice echoed from inside the house. Can you come here for a sec? I found him in the kitchen, surrounded by paint swatches and flooring samples. His eyes lit up as I entered, and he pulled me close for a kiss. What do you think about this color for the living room? He asked, holding up a soft sage green swatch. I wrinkled my nose. A bit too earthy, don't you think? Mark laughed, the sound warming me from the inside out. You're right. How about this blue instead? As we pored over the samples, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Elizabeth standing there, her face drawn and tired. Elizabeth, I said, surprised. Is everything all right? She stepped inside, her eyes darting around nervously. I need to talk to Mark. Mark appeared behind me, his hand resting on my lower back. Mom, what's going on? Elizabeth's chin quivered. Your father, he's gone, heart attack. I don't know what to do. The next few weeks passed in a blur of funeral arrangements and legal meetings. As we sat in the lawyer's office, listening to the reading of Mark's father's will, I felt a growing unease. And to my son, Mark, I leave the family home, the lawyer droned on. I turned to Mark, confusion etched on my face. I thought we were buying this house together? Before Mark could respond, Elizabeth cut in. Of course you are, dear. This is just a formality. The house has always been in the family. Mark squeezed my hand reassuringly, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Later that night, as we lay in bed, I broached the subject again. Mark, about the house. He sighed, pulling me closer. I know, I should have told you, but it doesn't change anything. This is our home, Clara. We've put our heart and soul into it. I wanted to believe him, but a seed of doubt had been planted. The following week, Elizabeth showed up on our doorstep, suitcases in tow. I hope you don't mind, she said, brushing past me. I just can't bear to be alone in that big empty house. Mark and I exchanged glances. Of course not, Mom, he said. Stay as long as you need. As days turned into weeks and weeks into months, Elizabeth's presence began to wear on me, She critiqued my cooking, rearranged our furniture, and constantly reminded me of my shortcomings as a wife and homemaker. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, Elizabeth cornered me in the kitchen. "You know, Clara," she said, her voice sickly sweet, "I've been thinking. Perhaps it would be best if I just moved in permanently. After all, this is my family home." I nearly dropped the plate I was holding. "Elizabeth, Mark and I are starting our own family. We need our space." Her eyes narrowed. "Space? In my son's house? I think you're forgetting your place here, Clara." Before I could respond, Mark walked in. "Everything okay in here?" Elizabeth's demeanor changed instantly. "Of course, darling. I was just offering to help Clara with dinner. She seems a bit overwhelmed." As Elizabeth brushed past us, Mark turned to me. "You okay? You look upset." I wanted to tell him everything, to make him understand how his mother's presence was slowly suffocating me. But the words caught in my throat. "I'm fine," I lied. "Just tired." Mark kissed my forehead. "Why don't you go rest? I'll finish up here." As I climbed the stairs, I heard Elizabeth's voice drift up from the kitchen. "Mark, darling, we need to talk about Clara. I'm worried she's not cut out for this family." I paused, my heart pounding. What was Elizabeth up to? And more importantly, how would Mark respond? As I stood there, frozen on the stairs, I realized that the battle for my home and my marriage had only just begun. The screech of tires and the sickening crunch of metal tore through my world like a hurricane. One moment, Mark and I were laughing about some silly joke, and the next, our lives changed forever. I paced the sterile hospital corridor, my heart pounding in my ears. The doctor's words echoed in my mind: paralyzed from the waist down, extensive rehabilitation, full-time care. Elizabeth burst through the doors, her face a mask of fury. "Where is he? What happened?" I tried to explain, but she brushed past me into Mark's room. I followed, feeling like an intruder in my own husband's space. "Oh, my poor baby," Elizabeth cooed, stroking Mark's hair. She turned to me, eyes blazing. "How could you let this happen?" Mark's weak voice cut through the tension. "Mom, it wasn't Clara's fault, please." Weeks turned into months, and our once peaceful home became a battleground. I resigned from my job to care for Mark full-time, learning to navigate the complexities of his new needs. One afternoon, as I was helping Mark with his exercises, Elizabeth barged in. "Clara, the house is a mess. When was the last time you dusted?" I bit back a retort, focusing on Mark's movements. "I've been a little busy, Elizabeth," she sniffed disapprovingly. "Well, if you can't handle it, perhaps we should hire a housekeeper. Of course, that would mean even less money coming in." Mark's face flushed with anger. "Mom, that's enough. Clara's doing her best." I squeezed his hand gratefully, but Elizabeth wasn't finished. "And what about your writing, Clara? Surely you could be doing that instead of whatever it is you do all day." That night, after Mark was asleep, I sat at my desk, staring at the blank computer screen. Elizabeth's words echoed in my mind. Maybe she was right. Maybe I could be doing more. I started writing, pouring my fears and frustrations onto the page. Before I knew it, the sun was peeking through the curtains, and I had the rough draft of a short story. Over the next few weeks, I fell into a new routine. Caring for Mark during the day, writing late into the night. It wasn't easy, but it gave me a sense of purpose beyond caregiving. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, Elizabeth cornered me in the kitchen. "I saw your name in that little online magazine," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "Is that what you've been doing instead of keeping this house in order?" I took a deep breath, determined not to let her get to me. "I'm trying to contribute, Elizabeth. Writing helps pay the bills." She laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Contribute? Please, those pennies you earn are nothing compared to what Mark used to make. Face it, Clara, you're a burden on this family." Something inside me snapped. "A burden? I've given up everything to care for your son. I'm doing my best to keep this family afloat while you do nothing but criticize." Elizabeth's face turned an alarming shade of red. "How dare you speak to me like that in my own home?" "Your home?" I shot back. "Mark and I built this life together. You're the guest here, Elizabeth." The sound of Mark's wheelchair interrupted our argument. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice tight with concern. Elizabeth's demeanor changed instantly. "Nothing, darling. Clara and I were just discussing household matters." I turned away, unable to bear the look of confusion on Mark's face. As I busied myself at the stove, I heard Elizabeth's voice, low and menacing. "This isn't over, Clara. You may have Mark fooled, but I see right through you. One way or another, I'll make sure you know your place in this family." As she swept out of the kitchen, I gripped the counter, my knuckles turning white. I knew then that this was more than just a clash of personalities. Elizabeth saw me as a threat, and she wouldn't rest until she had pushed me out of Mark's life, and out of this house for good. I looked at Mark, his worried eyes meeting mine, and made a silent vow. I wouldn't let Elizabeth win. No matter what it took, I would fight for my marriage, my home, and the life Mark and I had built together. The shrill ring of my phone jolted me awake. I fumbled for it in the darkness, my heart racing. "Hello?" I croaked, my voice thick with sleep. "Clara, it's Dr. Patel. You need to come to the hospital right away. It's Mark." The world tilted on its axis as I rushed to dress. My hands shook so badly I could barely button my blouse. I called Elizabeth, leaving a terse voicemail about Mark's condition before racing to the car. The hospital corridors seemed endless as I ran towards Mark's room. Dr. Patel met me outside, his face grave. "I'm sorry, Clara. We did everything we could, but the infection was too severe. Mark passed away a few minutes ago." The words hit me like a physical blow. I staggered, bracing myself against the wall. "No," I whispered. "No, it can't be." I don't remember entering Mark's room, but suddenly I was there, clutching his lifeless hand. His skin was still warm, and for a moment I could almost pretend he was just sleeping. But the stillness in his chest told the truth my heart couldn't accept. "Mark," I sobbed, pressing my forehead to his. "Please, don't leave me." A commotion in the hallway broke through my grief. Elizabeth's voice, shrill and angry, echoed off the walls. "Where is he? Where's my son?" She burst into the room, her eyes wild. When she saw Mark, she let out a wail that chilled me to the bone. "My baby! Oh, my poor baby!" Elizabeth threw herself across Mark's body, pushing me aside. I stumbled back, watching in stunned silence as she stroked his face, murmuring words I couldn't understand. The next few days passed in a blur of funeral arrangements, well-meaning visitors. I moved through it all in a fog, barely registering the words of sympathy or the gentle touches on my arm. Elizabeth took charge, making decisions about the service and the burial without consulting me. I was too numb to protest. It wasn't until the night after the funeral that reality truly set in. I sat in Mark's favorite chair, clutching one of his sweaters to my chest, when Elizabeth entered the room. "Well," she said, her voice oddly calm, "I suppose we need to discuss what happens now." I looked up at her, confused. "What do you mean?" Elizabeth sighed, settling herself on the sofa. "Clara, dear, you have to understand. With Mark gone, things have to change. This house, it's been in our family for generations. It was never really yours." Her words pierced through my grief like a knife. "What are you saying, Elizabeth?" "I'm saying that it's time for you to move on, find a place of your own, start a new life." I stood up, anger finally breaking through my numbness. "This is my home. Mark and I built our life here together." Elizabeth's eyes hardened. "No, Clara. This was Mark's home. You were just a guest here, and now your stay has come to an end." "You can't do this," I said, my voice shaking. "Mark wouldn't want this." "Mark isn't here anymore," Elizabeth snapped, "and I'm the one who decides what happens to this house now." As the full weight of her words sank in, I felt something inside me break. Not only had I lost my husband, but now I was losing my home, my security, everything we had built together. I turned away from Elizabeth, unable to bear the triumphant gleam in her eyes. My gaze fell on a photo of Mark and me on our wedding day, smiling and full of hope for the future. A future that now lay in ashes at my feet. In that moment, I knew I had a choice to make. I could fight Elizabeth, drag this out in a bitter legal battle that would tarnish Mark's memory. Or I could find the strength to start anew, to honor Mark by living the life he would have wanted for me. As I stood there, torn between grief and determination, I realized that the real battle was just beginning. And somehow, I would have to find the courage to face it alone. I sat on the floor of Mark's study, surrounded by photo albums and memories. My fingers traced the outline of his face in our wedding photo, tears blurring my vision. It had been 2 weeks since the funeral, and the house felt emptier than ever. The creak of the door startled me. Elizabeth stood there, her lips pursed in disapproval. "Still wallowing, I see," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. I wiped my eyes, struggling to my feet. "I'm just remembering," I said softly. Elizabeth's eyes narrowed. Remembering? Or plotting? What are you talking about? I asked, confusion mixing with my grief. She struck into the room, snatching the photo album from my hands. Don't play innocent with me, Clara. I know what you're up to. Elizabeth, please. I don't understand. Oh, spare me, she spat. You think if you play the grieving widow long enough, you'll get to keep this house? Well, let me tell you something. This house belongs to the family. To me, you're nothing but a guest here, and your welcome has long overstayed. Her words hit me like a physical blow. How can you say that? Mark and I built our life here together. This is my home, too. Elizabeth laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Your home? You really are delusional, aren't you? Mark may have let you believe that, but the truth is, you were never more than a temporary fixture in his life. In our family. I felt something snap inside me. That's not true. Mark loved me. We were partners in everything. Partners? Elizabeth scoffed. Is that what you call it when you couldn't even give him children? When you quit your job and became a burden? Face it, Clara, you were never good enough for my son. Her words cut deep, reopening wounds I thought had long since healed. I took care of Mark, I said, my voice shaking. I was there for him when he needed me most. Elizabeth's face contorted with rage. And where were you when he died? Off scribbling your little stories while my son took his last breath alone. The accusation hit me like a punch to the gut. I stumbled back, gripping the edge of Mark's desk for support. That's not... I didn't know. Of course you didn't, Elizabeth sneered. You were too wrapped up in your own little world to notice my son slipping away. Some wife you were. Tears streamed down my face as I struggled to breathe. Elizabeth, please, this isn't what Mark would have wanted. Don't you dare presume to know what my son would have wanted, she hissed. Mark is gone, and it's time you accepted that. This charade of yours ends now. I want you out of this house by the end of the week. You can't do this, I whispered, my mind reeling. This is my home. Elizabeth's eyes glittered with malice. Watch me. If you're not gone by Friday, I'll have the locks changed and your things thrown out on the street. It's time you faced reality, Clara. You're not family. You never were. With that, she turned on her heel and stormed out, leaving me alone in the wreckage of my life. I sank to the floor, sobs racking my body as the full weight of my situation crashed down on me. I was alone, truly, completely alone. The home I had shared with Mark, the life we had built together, was being ripped away from me. And the worst part was, a small voice in the back of my mind whispered that maybe Elizabeth was right. Maybe I hadn't been enough for Mark. Maybe I didn't deserve this home, these memories. As the sun set outside the window, casting long shadows across the room, I knew I had a decision to make. I could fight Elizabeth, cling to the remnants of my life with Mark, or I could find the strength to start anew. With trembling hands, I reached for the photo album, opening it to the last picture Mark and I had taken together. His smile, so full of love and life, seemed to give me strength. I traced his face one last time, then slowly closed the book. It was time to write a new chapter in my story, even if it meant leaving behind everything I had ever known. I stood in the kitchen, my hands shaking as I clutched a mug of cold coffee. Elizabeth's ultimatum echoed in my mind. Leave by Friday or be thrown out. I had less than 48 hours to decide my fate. The doorbell rang, startling me from my thoughts. I opened it to find my Aunt Martha, her kind face creased with concern. Clara, honey, she said, pulling me into a hug. I came as soon as I heard. Are you okay? I broke down in her arms, weeks of pent-up grief and frustration pouring out. Between sobs, I told her everything. Elizabeth's cruelty, the threat of eviction, my fear of losing the last connection to Mark. Martha listened, her eyes growing harder with each word. When I finished, she took my hands in hers. Clara, you need to fight this. That house is as much yours as it is Elizabeth's. I shook my head. I can't, Martha. I'm so tired of fighting. Maybe it's time I let go. Let go? Martha's voice rose. Clara, this isn't just about a house. It's about your life with Mark, your memories, your future. You can't let Elizabeth bully you out of that. As if summoned by her name, Elizabeth appeared in the doorway, her face a mask of disdain. Well, if it isn't the cavalry, she sneered, come to talk some sense into her? Martha stood, drawing herself up to her full height. I've come to support my niece, Elizabeth, something you seem incapable of doing for your own daughter-in-law. Elizabeth's eyes flashed. Daughter-in-law? Please, Clara was nothing more than a temporary distraction for Mark. Now that he's gone, it's time for her to move on. I flinched at her words, but Martha wasn't backing down. How dare you? Clara was Mark's wife, his partner. She has every right to be here. Rights? Elizabeth laughed bitterly. The only rights here are mine. This house belongs to me now, and I want her out. Something snapped inside me. I stepped forward, my voice steadier than I felt. No, Elizabeth. This house was Mark's, and he wanted me to have it. I'm not leaving. Elizabeth's face contorted with rage. You ungrateful little... She lunged forward, her hand raised as if strike me. Martha intercepted, grabbing Elizabeth's wrist. That's enough, Clara. Go pack a bag. You're coming with me. But... I started to protest. Now, Clara, Martha insisted. We need to talk to a lawyer. As I hurried upstairs, I heard Elizabeth's shrill voice. A lawyer? Go ahead, you'll see. I'll make sure she has nothing left when I'm done. My hands trembled as I threw clothes into a suitcase. This was it, the moment everything changed. I was leaving the home Mark and I had shared, possibly for the last time. As I zipped the bag closed, my gaze fell on our wedding photo on the nightstand. Mark's smile, so full of love and hope, seemed to give me strength. I picked up the frame, clutching it to my chest. I'm sorry, Mark, I whispered. I tried to hold on, but I don't know if I can anymore. Downstairs, Martha was waiting by the door, her face grim. Come on, honey. We'll figure this out. As we stepped outside, Elizabeth's voice rang out behind us. Don't bother coming back, Clara. Next time I'll have you arrested for trespassing. The door slammed shut, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the quiet street. I stumbled, overwhelmed by the finality of it all. Martha steadied me, her arm around my shoulders. It's not over, Clara. We'll fight this, I promise. As we drove away, I watched the house, my home, grow smaller in the rearview mirror. The life I had known, the future Mark and I had planned, seemed to be slipping away with each passing mile. I closed my eyes, tears streaming down my face. In that moment, I felt more alone than ever before. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with legal battles and emotional turmoil. But as the car carried me away from everything I had ever known, I realized that this might be my last chance to reclaim not just my home, but my very identity. The question was, did I have the strength to fight for it? The keys to my new apartment felt cold and unfamiliar in my hand as I unlocked the door. The small, one-bedroom space was a far cry from the home I'd shared with Mark, but it was mine. No Elizabeth, no painful memories lurking around every corner. I set down the last of my boxes and surveyed my new kingdom. The walls were bare, the furniture sparse, but it held the promise of a fresh start. I could almost hear Mark's voice encouraging me. You've got this, Clara. Time to write your own story. With a deep breath, I unpacked my laptop and set it on the rickety kitchen table. It was time to get back to work, to lose myself in the worlds I created on the page. As I began to type, the words flowed more freely than they had in months. Hours passed, and I barely noticed the sun setting outside my window. I was deep in the throes of writing when my phone buzzed, startling me. Elizabeth's name flashed on the screen. My finger hovered over the decline button, but curiosity got the better of me. Hello? I answered, my voice wary. Clara? Elizabeth's voice sounded strained, almost panicked. I need your help. I sat back, stunned. My help? With what? The house, she said, her words tumbling out in a rush. There's so much to manage. The taxes, the repairs. I don't know how you and Mark did it all. A bitter laugh escaped me. We managed it together, Elizabeth, something you never understood. Please, she begged. I don't know who else to turn to. You know this house better than anyone. For a moment, I was tempted. The thought of being back in my home, surrounded by the life Mark and I had built, was almost overwhelming. But then I remembered Elizabeth's cruel words, the way she'd thrown me out without a second thought. I'm sorry, Elizabeth, I said, my voice firm. But that's not my problem anymore. You wanted the house, and now it's yours to deal with. But I cut her off. No, Elizabeth, you made your choice. Now you have to live with it. I ended the call, my hand shaking. Part of me felt guilty for turning her away, but a larger part felt liberated. For the first time since Mark's death, I'd stood up for myself, set a boundary. Energized, I turned back to my writing. The words flowed even faster now, fueled by a newfound sense of purpose. I was no longer just Clara, Mark's widow. I was Clara, the writer, forging her own path. Days turned into weeks, and I fell into a routine. Write, submit, repeat. The rejection stung, but each one only made me more determined. And then, finally, an acceptance. A small literary magazine wanted to publish one of my short stories. As I celebrated with a glass of wine, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Martha. "Clara, honey," she said, her voice tight with concern. "Have you spoken to Elizabeth recently?" I sighed. "She called a few weeks ago, asking for help with the house. I told her no." Martha was quiet for a moment. "Well, it seems she's in over her head. The neighbors called me. Apparently the house is falling into disrepair. Elizabeth can't keep up with it." A pang of guilt shot through me. "That's unfortunate, but it's not my responsibility anymore, Martha." "I know, dear," Martha said softly, "but, well, there's more. Elizabeth is talking about selling the house." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "Selling? But that's our home. Mark's home." "I know," Martha replied. "I thought you should know, in case you wanted to do something about it." As I hung up the phone, I felt as if I was standing on the edge of a precipice. On one side was the new life I'd begun to build, free from Elizabeth's toxicity. On the other, the home filled with memories of Mark, the life we'd shared. I glanced at my laptop, at the story I'd just sold, then at the photo of Mark on my desk. His smile seemed to challenge me, asking what I was going to do next. In that moment, I realized that the real battle was just beginning. The question was, did I have the strength to fight for my past while still moving towards my future? The doorbell's chime echoed through my apartment, jolting me from my writing trance. I opened the door to find Aunt Martha, her face etched with concern. "Clara, honey," she said, stepping inside. "We need to talk about Elizabeth." My stomach clenched. "What's she done now?" Martha sighed, settling onto my worn sofa. "It's not what she's done. It's what she's lost. The house, Clara. She sold it." The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. "Sold it? But how? When?" "Last week," Martha replied. "For a fraction of its worth, too. She didn't know the first thing about real estate." I sank into a chair, my mind reeling. "What about the car? Mark's things?" Martha's eyes filled with pity. "Gone. All of it. She sold everything she could and gambled away the rest." A sob caught in my throat. "But why? How could she do that?" "Oh, honey," Martha said softly, "Elizabeth never knew how to manage on her own. Without Mark, without you, she was lost." The irony of it all hit me like a tidal wave. Elizabeth, who had been so determined to push me out, had ended up losing everything herself. "Where is she now?" I asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. Martha shook her head. "That's the thing. No one knows. She's burned bridges with every family member who tried to help. Last I heard, she was staying at a motel on the edge of town." I stood up, pacing the small room. I should feel satisfied, shouldn't I? After everything she put me through, this feels like justice. "But you don't, do you?" Martha asked gently. I stopped, staring out the window at the city below. "No," I whispered. "I feel sad. For her, for Mark, for the life we all could have had if things had been different." Martha joined me at the window, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder. "You have a good heart, Clara. That's why Mark loved you so much." Her words sparked something in me. I turned to face her, a new resolve burning in my chest. "I need to see her, Martha. One last time." The motel was as dingy as I'd imagined. I knocked on room 13, my heart pounding. When the door opened, I barely recognized the woman before me. Elizabeth, once so proud and put together, looked haggard and defeated. "Clara," she croaked, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Hello, Elizabeth," I said softly. "May I come in?" She stepped aside, wordlessly. The room was a mess, clothes strewn about, empty bottles littering every surface. "Why are you here?" Elizabeth asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I took a deep breath. "Because despite everything, you're family. And I think Mark would have wanted me to check on you." At the mention of Mark's name, Elizabeth crumpled. Sobs racked her body as years of grief and bitterness poured out. I hesitated for a moment before wrapping my arms around her, my own tears falling freely. We stayed like that for what felt like hours, two women united in loss and regret. When the tears finally subsided, I pulled back, looking Elizabeth in the eye. "It's time to start over," I said firmly. "Both of us." Elizabeth nodded, a glimmer of hope in her tired eyes. "But how?" "I've lost everything." I smiled, a plan forming in my mind. "Not everything. You still have family, Elizabeth, and I think I might have an idea." As we left the motel room together, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The house was gone, along with many of the physical reminders of my life with Mark. But I realized that the most important things, the memories, the love, the lessons learned, were still with me. I glanced at Elizabeth, seeing her not as an enemy, but as a fellow traveler on this journey of grief and healing. We had a long road ahead, but for the first time in months I felt truly hopeful. As we drove away, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the rearview mirror. The woman looking back at me was stronger, wiser, and more compassionate than she had been before. I smiled, hearing Mark's voice in my head. "That's my girl. Keep writing your story, Clara. The best chapters are yet to come." And as the sun set on this chapter of my life, I knew that he was right. The end of one story was just the beginning of another, and this time I was ready to be the author of my own tale. The shrill ring of my phone pierced the quiet of my studio, shattering my concentration. I glanced at the caller ID and felt my stomach lurch. Ethan, my ex-husband. I hadn't heard from him in 3 years, not since our messy divorce. With trembling fingers, I answered. "Laura," his voice was cold, accusatory. "What have you done to my parents?" I blinked, caught off guard. "Ethan, what are you talking about? Don't play dumb with me," he snarled. "Mom and Dad are broke, and they're saying you're the reason why. What kind of sick game are you playing?" My mind reeled. I hadn't spoken to Grace and Arnold in years, not since Ethan had left me for my sister, Rachel. "I haven't seen your parents since before the divorce," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Liar!" Ethan's voice rose to a shout. "They've been sending you money for years, and now they can't even afford their medications. How could you do this to them? To me?" I felt a surge of anger. How dare he accuse me of such a thing? After everything he'd done? "Listen to me, Ethan," I said, my voice hard. "I don't know what's going on with your parents, but I have nothing to do with it. Maybe you should look closer to home for answers." There was a pause on the other end of the line. When Ethan spoke again, his voice was low and menacing. "I'm warning you, Laura. If I find out you've been manipulating my parents, I'll make you pay. You won't get away with this." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, my heart pounding. What the hell was going on? I barely had time to process the conversation when my studio door burst open. My assistant, Megan, rushed in, her face pale. "Laura, there's a man downstairs causing a scene. He's demanding to see you." My blood ran cold. "What does he look like?" Megan's eyes widened. "Tall, dark hair, expensive suit. He says he's your ex-husband." "Oh, God," I muttered. I should have known Ethan wouldn't let it go. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "Okay, Megan, call security. I'll deal with this." I made my way downstairs, my mind racing. As I reached the lobby, I saw him. Ethan, looking as handsome and arrogant as ever, was shouting at the receptionist. "Ethan," I called out, my voice sharp. "What do you think you're doing?" He whirled to face me, his eyes blazing with fury. "You," he spat. "You think you can ruin my family and get away with it?" I stood my ground, aware of the growing crowd of onlookers. "I haven't done anything to your family, Ethan. You're the one who destroyed ours, remember?" His face contorted with rage. He took a step towards me, his fists clenched. "Don't you dare turn this around on me. My parents trusted you, and you betrayed them." I felt a flicker of fear, but I refused to show it. "Your parents haven't contacted me in years, Ethan. Whatever's going on with them has nothing to do with me." "Liar!" he roared, lunging forward. Suddenly, 2 security guards appeared, grabbing Ethan's arms. He struggled against them, his face red with fury. "This isn't over, Laura," he shouted as they dragged him away. "I'll make you pay for this." As the doors closed behind him, I sagged against the wall, my heart pounding. What had just happened? And more importantly, what was I going to do now? I looked up to see my entire staff staring at me, their faces a mix of shock and concern. I straightened up, forcing a calm I didn't feel. "Show's over, folks," I said, my voice only slightly shaky. "Back to work, please." As they dispersed, Megan approached me, her eyes wide. "Laura, are you okay? Should I call the police?" I shook my head, my mind already racing ahead. "No, not yet, but I need you to clear my schedule for the rest of the day. I have some calls to make." As I headed back to my office, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Whatever was going on with Ethan and his parents, I had a sinking feeling that my life was about to get a lot more complicated. I closed my eyes, letting the warm water of the shower wash over me, trying to rinse away the stress of the day. As I stepped out, wrapping myself in a towel, my mind drifted back to happier times, times when Ethan and I were newlyweds, full of hope and dreams. "Laura, honey, I'm home." Ethan's voice echoed through our apartment, jolting me from my reverie. I quickly dressed and made my way to the living room. There he stood, my handsome husband, a bouquet of roses in his hand and a mischievous glint in his eye. "What's the occasion?" I asked, unable to keep the smile from my face. He pulled me close, his lips brushing my ear. "Do I need an occasion to spoil my beautiful wife?" I melted into his embrace, savoring the moment. This was the Ethan I fell in love with, charming, thoughtful, and completely devoted to me. But as I pulled away, I caught a whiff of unfamiliar perfume on his collar. My stomach clenched, but I pushed the thought aside. I was being paranoid, surely. "I have news," Ethan said, his excitement palpable. "The company's sending me to New York for a big project. It's a huge opportunity, Laura." My heart sank. "How long will you be gone?" "Just a couple of weeks," he assured me. "And guess what? Your sister Rachel's coming to stay while I'm away. She's between apartments and needs a place to crash. You two can have some quality sister time." I forced a smile, but inside, alarm bells were ringing. Rachel and I had never been close. She was younger, wilder, and had a knack for causing trouble wherever she went. "That's great," I lied, my mind already racing with potential disasters. The next morning, as Ethan left for the airport, Rachel arrived in a whirlwind of designer luggage and drama. "Laura, darling," she exclaimed, air kissing my cheeks. "It's been too long. This is going to be so much fun." I nodded, already exhausted. "Let me show you to the guest room." As we walked, Rachel chattered incessantly. "Oh, by the way, I ran into Ethan at the airport. He looked so dashing in his suit. You're such a lucky woman, Laura." I froze. The airport? But Ethan left hours ago. Rachel's eyes widened, then quickly narrowed. "Oh, did I say airport? I meant the coffee shop. Yes, that's it. I saw him at the coffee shop before he left." My suspicions, which had been simmering for weeks, suddenly boiled over. Rachel was lying, and badly at that. But why? Over the next few days, Rachel's presence grated on my nerves. She was constantly on her phone, giggling at texts and taking hushed calls in the hallway. When I asked about her job search or apartment hunting, she'd wave me off with vague excuses. One evening, I returned home early from work to find Rachel frantically stuffing something into her purse. "What are you doing?" I demanded. She jumped, guilt flashing across her face before she composed herself. "Nothing, just organizing my things. Why are you home so early?" I stepped closer, my eyes locked on her purse. "What are you hiding, Rachel?" "Don't be ridiculous," she snapped, clutching the purse to her chest. "You're so paranoid, Laura. No wonder Ethan—" She cut herself off abruptly. "No wonder Ethan what?" I pressed, my heart pounding. Rachel's face hardened. "Nothing. Forget I said anything." But I couldn't forget. That slip, combined with everything else, painted a picture I didn't want to see but couldn't ignore. That night, as Rachel slept, I crept into the guest room. My hands shook as I opened her purse, dreading what I might find. There, nestled among her makeup and keys, was a plane ticket to New York, dated for tomorrow. My world tilted on its axis. The perfume, the secretive calls, the lie about seeing Ethan at the airport. It all made terrible sense now. As I stood there, holding the evidence of my husband's betrayal and my sister's deception, I felt something inside me harden. The old Laura, trusting and naive, died in that moment. In her place rose a woman who would no longer be fooled, no longer be played for a fool. Tomorrow, I decided, there would be a reckoning, and neither Ethan nor Rachel would see it coming. I stood in the kitchen, my hands gripping the counter so tightly my knuckles turned white. The sound of Rachel's suitcase wheel rolling across the hardwood floor echoed through the apartment. "Laura?" she called out. "I'm heading out for a bit. Don't wait up." I took a deep breath, steeling myself. It was now or never. "Going somewhere special, Rachel?" I asked, stepping into the hallway. She froze, her hand on the doorknob. "Oh, just meeting a friend." I held up the plane ticket I'd found in her purse. "A friend in New York, perhaps?" The color drained from Rachel's face. "Laura, I can explain." "Save it," I snapped. "I know you're going to see Ethan. How long has this been going on?" Rachel's demeanor changed in an instant. The guilt vanished, replaced by a cold, calculating look. Longer than you'd like to know, sis, she said, her voice dripping with disdain. Ethan and I, we have something special. Something you could never give him. The words hit me like a physical blow. How could you do this to me? I'm your sister. She laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Oh, please, you've always had everything handed to you on a silver platter, the perfect job, the perfect husband. It's time I got what I deserved. By stealing my husband? I was shaking now, rage and hurt battling for dominance. He was never really yours, Rachel sneered. He was just waiting for something better to come along. Face it, Laura, you're not enough for him. You never were. I lunged forward, my hand connecting with her cheek in a resounding slap. Rachel stumbled back, shock written across her face. Get out, I hissed. Get out of my home, and don't you dare come back. Rachel grabbed her suitcase, her eyes blazing with fury. You'll regret this, Laura. Ethan and I will make sure of it. As the door slammed behind her, I collapsed to the floor, sobs racking my body. How had everything fallen apart so quickly? Hours later, my phone buzzed. It was Ethan. Laura, his voice was cold, controlled. We need to talk. About what? I asked, my own voice hollow. About how you've been sleeping with my sister. There was a pause. Rachel told me what happened. You had no right to attack her like that. I laughed bitterly. No right. She's been having an affair with my husband. And I had no right. It's not an affair, Ethan said firmly. Laura, I'm in love with Rachel. I want a divorce. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. A divorce? I whispered. Yes, I'll be back in town next week. We can discuss the details then. Details, I echoed, feeling numb. Ethan, wait. But the line had already gone dead. I sat in stunned silence, my mind reeling. My marriage was over. My husband, the man I'd loved and trusted, had betrayed me in the worst possible way. And my own sister had been complicit in it all. As the shock began to wear off, a new emotion took its place. Determination. I wouldn't let them see me broken. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. I stood up, wiping away the last of my tears. If Ethan wanted a divorce, he'd get one, but it would be on my terms. I picked up my phone again, scrolling through my contacts until I found the name I was looking for. Sarah Goldstein, the best divorce attorney in the city. Sarah? I said when she answered. It's Laura. I need your help. My husband's been having an affair with my sister, and he wants a divorce. Oh, honey. Sarah's voice was sympathetic but steely. Don't you worry. We'll make sure you come out of this on top. As I hung up, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. The life I'd known was over, shattered by betrayal and lies. But from the ashes of my old life, a new Laura would rise. And this Laura, she wouldn't be anyone's victim. Not anymore. The morning sickness hit me like a freight train. I barely made it to the bathroom before emptying the contents of my stomach. As I slumped against the cool tile floor, reality crashed down on me. I was pregnant. With shaking hands, I reached for my phone and dialed my doctor's office. An hour later, my suspicions were confirmed. 6 weeks along, my mind reeled. A baby. Ethan's baby. I stumbled out of the clinic in a daze, my thoughts a chaotic whirlwind. How could I bring a child into this mess? Ethan was in love with Rachel. Our marriage was falling apart. And now this. My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. Finalizing details in New York. Back next week. We need to talk. I stared at the screen, my finger hovering over the reply button. Should I tell him? Did he deserve to know? The thought of Ethan and Rachel raising my child made me physically ill. No, this was my decision to make. My body. My choice. I made my way to the office, trying to focus on work, but my mind kept drifting. By lunchtime, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to talk to someone. Someone who would understand. I found myself outside Grace and Arnold's house, Ethan's parents. They had always been kind to me, treating me like a daughter. Before I could change my mind, I knocked. Grace answered, her face lighting up. Laura, what a lovely surprise. Come in, dear. I followed her into the living room where Arnold was reading the paper. He smiled warmly at me. Laura, it's been too long. How are you? The concern in their eyes undid me. Tears welled up, and before I knew it, I was sobbing, the whole sordid story spilling out. Ethan's affair with Rachel, the impending divorce, and finally the pregnancy. Grace held me close, murmuring soothing words while Arnold's face darkened with anger. That boy, he muttered. We didn't raise him to behave like this. When I finally calmed down, Grace asked the question I'd been dreading. What are you going to do about the baby, dear? I took a deep breath. I don't know. I never thought I'd be in this position. Single, pregnant, about to go through a divorce. Arnold leaned forward, his eyes serious. Laura, whatever you decide, we want you to know that we're here for you. Your family, regardless of what happens with Ethan. Grace nodded emphatically. We'll support you, no matter what. If you want to keep the baby, we'll help in any way we can. Their unconditional support overwhelmed me. For the first time since discovering Ethan's betrayal, I felt a glimmer of hope. As I left their house, my phone buzzed again. Another text from Ethan. Booked an appointment with the divorce lawyer for next Tuesday. Hope that works for you. A cold fury washed over me. He was already moving on, planning our divorce like it was just another business meeting. And here I was, carrying his child. My world turned upside down. In that moment, I made my decision. I would keep this baby. I would build a new life for us, without Ethan, without Rachel, without their toxicity and betrayal. I typed out a reply. Tuesday works. I'll be there with my lawyer. Then I made another call. Sarah? It's Laura again. There's been a development. I'm pregnant, and I'm keeping the baby. Sarah's intake of breath was audible. Oh, honey, this changes everything. Don't worry, we'll make sure you and that baby are taken care of. Ethan won't know what hit him. As I hung up, a strange calm settled over me. The path ahead would be difficult, filled with challenges I couldn't even imagine, but for the first time in weeks, I felt strong. Ready. Let Ethan and Rachel have each other. I had something far more precious now. A future. A family of my own. I placed a hand on my still flat stomach. It's just you and me, little one, I whispered. And we're going to be just fine. The day of the divorce meeting arrived with a sickening sense of finality. I stood outside the law office, my hand resting protectively over my still flat stomach. Taking a deep breath, I pushed open the door. Ethan was already there, looking annoyingly handsome in his tailored suit. His eyes widened slightly as they met mine, a flicker of something, guilt, regret, passing over his face before it hardened into a mask of indifference. Laura, he nodded curtly. Ethan, I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. We sat across from each other, an ocean of betrayal between us. Our lawyers began discussing terms, their voices a dull buzz in my ears. I focused on Ethan, studying the man I once thought I'd spend my life with. How had we ended up here? Suddenly the door burst open. Rachel sauntered in, her face a picture of faux concern. Oh, I'm so sorry I'm late, she cooed, placing a possessive hand on Ethan's shoulder. Traffic was terrible. I felt the blood drain from my face. What is she doing here? I demanded, my voice shaking with fury. Ethan at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. Rachel's here for moral support, he muttered. Moral support? I laughed bitterly. That's rich, coming from the two people who have the least morals in this room. Rachel's eyes narrowed. Now, Laura, there's no need to be nasty. We're all adults here. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. I want her out, I said, pointing at Rachel. This is between Ethan and me. She has no right to be here. Actually, Ethan cleared his throat. There's something you should know. He glanced at Rachel, who nodded encouragingly. Rachel and we're engaged. The world tilted on its axis. Engaged. The word echoed in my head, each repetition a fresh stab of pain. How long? I whispered, my voice barely audible. Ethan shifted uncomfortably. We've been talking about it for a while. I was going to tell you after. How long? I repeated, each word dripping with venom. Rachel smirked, flashing a diamond ring I hadn't noticed before. Since last month. We didn't want to upset you, but we're just so in love. Something inside me snapped. All the pain, the betrayal, the fear of the past weeks coalesced into a white-hot rage. In love? I spat. You want to talk about love? Let me tell you something about love. I turned to Ethan, my eyes blazing. I'm pregnant. The room fell silent. Ethan's face drained of color. Rachel's smug smile faltered. What? Ethan choked out. You heard me, I said, my voice gaining strength. I'm carrying your child. The child you were ready to abandon along with your marriage vows. Ethan stumbled to his feet. Laura, I had no idea. Why didn't you tell me? When should I have told you, Ethan? When you were sneaking around with my sister. Or maybe when you were planning your engagement behind my back. Rachel's face contorted with fury. You're lying, she hissed. You're just trying to manipulate him. I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Manipulate him? That's your area of expertise, Rachel, not mine. I turned back to Ethan, who looked shell-shocked. I don't want anything from you, I said, my voice cold. Not your money, not your time, nothing. This child and I will be just fine without you. With that, I gathered my things and walked towards the door. As I reached for the handle, Ethan called out, "Laura, wait. We need to talk about this. It's my baby too." I paused, my hand on the doorknob. Without turning around, I said, "You lost the right to call it your baby when you chose her over us." As I walked out, leaving behind a stunned Ethan and a seething Rachel, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges I couldn't even imagine. But for the first time in months, I felt truly free. My hand moved to my stomach, a small smile playing on my lips. "It's just you and me now, little one," I whispered, "and we're going to be amazing." The months flew by in a whirlwind of doctor's appointments, legal meetings, and sleepless nights. My belly grew along with my determination to build a new life for myself and my baby. Ethan's attempts to reach out were met with silence. I had nothing left to say to him. As I neared my due date, I received an unexpected visitor. Grace, Ethan's mother, stood on my doorstep, her eyes brimming with tears. "Laura, dear," she said, pulling me into a gentle hug, "I hope you don't mind me dropping by. I needed to see you." I ushered her in, my heart heavy. Grace and Arnold had been nothing but supportive throughout this ordeal, but I knew their loyalty was torn between their son and me. "How are you feeling?" Grace asked, her eyes fixed on my swollen belly. "Tired," I admitted, "but ready." Grace nodded, her expression pained. "Laura, there's something you should know. Ethan and Rachel, they're planning to fight for custody." The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. "What?" I gasped, steadying myself against the wall. "They claim you're unfit to be a single mother," Grace continued, her voice trembling with anger. "They're saying your work is too demanding, that you won't have time for the baby." Rage coursed through me, hot and fierce. "How dare they?" I seethed. "After everything they've done, they think they have the right to take my child?" Grace reached out, squeezing my hand. "Arnold and I won't let that happen. We'll testify on your behalf if it comes to that." Tears pricked my eyes. "Thank you," I whispered. As Grace left, I felt a sharp pain in my abdomen. I dismissed it, too preoccupied with this new threat. But as the evening wore on, the pain intensified. With a jolt of realization, I knew the baby was coming. I called my friend Sarah, who rushed over to drive me to the hospital. As we sped through the night, another contraction hit, stronger this time. "Breathe, Laura," Sarah urged, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. We arrived at the hospital in a flurry of activity. As I was wheeled into the delivery room, I caught sight of a familiar figure in the waiting area. Ethan. Our eyes met for a brief moment. I saw a mixture of emotions flash across his face: concern, regret, longing. But then Rachel appeared at his side, and his expression hardened. The next few hours were a blur of pain and determination. With each contraction, I channeled my anger, my fear, my love for this child I hadn't met yet. And then finally, a cry pierced the air. "It's a boy," the doctor announced, placing my son on my chest. As I looked into his tiny face, all the pain and betrayal of the past months melted away. This was what mattered, this perfect, innocent life we had created. But my moment of bliss was short-lived. A commotion outside the room caught my attention. Ethan's voice, raised in anger. "That's my son in there! I have a right to see him!" Panic gripped me. I clutched my baby closer, my heart racing. The nurse looked at me questioningly. "Do you want to see the father?" she asked gently. I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. "No," I whispered. "He's not welcome here." As if sensing my distress, my son began to cry. I soothed him, murmuring soft words of comfort. In that moment, I made a vow. No matter what it took, I would protect this child. From Ethan, from Rachel, from anyone who threatened our happiness. The nurse nodded understanding and left to deal with Ethan. As his protests faded, I looked down at my son, marveling at his tiny features. "It's just you and me now, little one," I whispered, echoing the words I'd spoken months ago. "And I promise you, we're going to be more than just fine. We're going to be extraordinary." 3 years flew by in a blur of first steps, sleepless nights, and countless moments of joy with my son Alex. I'd built a life for us, far from the shadows of Ethan and Rachel's betrayal. My design business thrived, and I'd even started dating again, though Alex remained my priority. Then, on a crisp autumn morning, my phone rang. Ethan's name flashed on the screen. My heart raced as I answered. Laura, his voice was cold, accusatory. What have you done to my parents? I blinked, caught off guard. Ethan, what are you talking about? Don't play dumb, he snarled. Mom and Dad are broke. They're saying you're the reason why. What kind of sick game are you playing? My mind reeled. I hadn't spoken to Grace and Arnold in months, not since they'd moved to Florida for retirement. I haven't seen your parents in ages, Ethan. I have no idea what you're talking about. Liar. Ethan's voice rose to a shout. They've been sending you money for years, and now they can't even afford their medications. How could you do this to them? To Alex? Anger surged through me. Listen to me, Ethan. I don't know what's going on with your parents, but I have nothing to do with it. Maybe you should look closer to home for answers. There was a pause on the other end of the line. When Ethan spoke again, his voice was low and menacing. I'm warning you, Laura. If I find out you've been manipulating my parents, I'll take Alex away from you. You won't get away with this. The line went dead. I stood there, shaking, my mind racing. What was happening? I dialed Grace's number, but it went straight to voicemail. Arnold's too. Panic rising, I called their neighbor in Florida. Oh, honey, the neighbor said, her voice heavy with sympathy. Grace and Arnold moved out weeks ago, said they couldn't afford the place anymore. I thought you knew. My blood ran cold. Something was terribly wrong. Just then there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find a stern-faced woman in a suit. Laura Thompson, she asked. I nodded, numb. I'm from Child Protective Services. We've received a report of potential child endangerment. I'm here to conduct an evaluation. My world tilted on its axis. Child endangerment? I echoed, disbelieving. There must be some mistake. The woman's face remained impassive. May I come in, please? As she entered, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. How does it feel to lose everything, sis? Karma's a bitch. Our Rachel. Of course. This was her doing. The CPS worker moved through my home, asking pointed questions about my parenting, my work hours, my financial situation. With each query, I felt the noose tightening. Where's your son now? She asked. At daycare, I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. She nodded, making a note. I'll need to speak with the daycare staff, and we'll be conducting follow-up visits. In the meantime, I strongly advise against any travel with your son. As she left, I collapsed onto the couch, my mind a whirlwind of fear and fury. Ethan and Rachel had orchestrated this, I was sure of it. They were trying to take Alex from me. My phone rang again. Grace's number. Laura? Her voice was weak, trembling. I'm so sorry. We didn't know what else to do. Rachel said if we didn't help them, we'd never see Alex again. But now they've taken everything. Tears streamed down my face as the full picture emerged. Ethan and Rachel had manipulated everyone, destroying lives in their wake. As I hung up, a steely resolve settled over me. They thought they'd won, that they'd finally broken me. But they had no idea what I was capable of when it came to protecting my son. I picked up my phone again, dialing a number I'd hoped never to use. Sarah? It's Laura. I need your help. It's time to fight back. The morning sun had barely risen when I heard the commotion outside my office. Ethan's voice, loud and belligerent, echoed through the hallway. Where is she? I demand to see Laura. My heart raced as I quickly dialed security. But before they could arrive, my office door burst open. Ethan stormed in, his face contorted with rage. Rachel closed behind him. You think you can hide from us? Ethan snarled. We know what you did to my parents. You're not fit to raise Alex. I stood my ground, anger and determination surging through me. I've done nothing to your parents, Ethan. You and Rachel are the ones who've manipulated and stolen from them. Rachel's face twisted into a sneer. Prove it. It's your word against ours. Who do you think they'll believe? The loving son or the bitter ex-wife? Just then, Sarah burst into the room, followed by 2 police officers. Actually, she said, her voice steady, they'll believe the evidence. Ethan and Rachel's faces paled as Sarah produced a stack of documents. We have bank records showing large transfers from Grace and Arnold's accounts to yours, Ethan. And Rachel, we have recordings of you threatening them if they didn't comply. The officers stepped forward. Ethan Thompson, Rachel Thompson, you're under arrest for fraud and extortion. As they were led away in handcuffs, Ethan's mask of arrogance crumbled. Laura, he pleaded, you can't let them do this. Think of Alex. I met his gaze, my voice firm. I am thinking of Alex, that's why I'm doing this. Once they were gone, I collapsed into my chair, overwhelmed by the emotions coursing through me. Sarah placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. "It's over, Laura. You did it." But it wasn't over. Not yet. Later that day, I stood outside Alex's daycare, my heart in my throat. The staff had been briefed about the situation, but I was still terrified of what might happen. As I waited, a familiar car pulled up. Grace and Arnold stepped out, looking older and more frail than I remembered. "Laura," Grace's voice quavered as she approached. "We're so sorry. For everything." I pulled them both into a hug, tears streaming down my face. "It's okay," I whispered. "You're safe now." The daycare doors opened, and Alex came bounding out. "Mommy," he cried, throwing himself into my arms. I held him tight, savoring his warmth, his innocence. "Hey, buddy, there's some people I want you to meet." I turned to Grace and Arnold, who were watching with tear-filled eyes. "Alex, these are your grandparents. They've been away for a while, but they're here now." As Alex shyly said hello, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. We had a long road ahead of us, rebuilding trust and healing old wounds. But for the first time in years, I felt hope. That night, as I tucked Alex into bed, he asked a question that broke my heart. "Mommy, why did Daddy and Aunt Rachel go away?" I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. Sometimes, honey, people make bad choices, but that doesn't mean they don't love you. It just means they need to learn how to love better. Alex nodded, his little face serious. "Will I see them again?" "Maybe someday," I said, kissing his forehead. "But for now, we have each other, and Grandma and Grandpa, and that's more than enough." As I closed his bedroom door, I caught sight of myself in the hallway mirror. The woman staring back at me was stronger, wiser, and more resilient than I ever thought possible. I had weathered the storm of betrayal, fought for my child, and come out the other side. Not unscathed, but unbroken. Tomorrow, we would start the process of relocating, finding a new home where we could build a peaceful life away from the shadows of the past. It wouldn't be easy, but I was ready for the challenge. Because now I knew the truth. I was capable of facing anything life threw at me. And with Alex by my side, I had all the love and strength I needed to face whatever came next. As I settled into bed, I smiled to myself. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in years, I was excited to see what it held. Because whatever came our way, I knew we would face it together, and that was all that mattered. The shrill ring of my phone pierced the silence of my office, making me jump. I glanced at the caller ID and felt my stomach knot. "Patricia!" My mother-in-law's name on the screen was enough to send a wave of dread through me. I took a deep breath, steeling myself before answering. "Hello, Patricia," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Olivia, dear," her saccharine tone oozed through the speaker. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." I bit back a sarcastic response. Of course, she was interrupting. She always did. "What can I do for you?" I asked instead. "Well, I was just wondering if you'd picked up Connor's dry cleaning yet. You know how he likes his shirts pressed just so for work." I closed my eyes, counting to 5 in my head. "Patricia, I'm at work. Connor can pick up his own dry cleaning." "Oh, Olivia," she tutted. "A good wife takes care of these things. You wouldn't want Connor to look unprofessional, would you?" Before I could respond, my office door opened. Ethan, my colleague, poked his head in. He mouthed, "Meeting in 5, and I nodded gratefully. "I have to go, Patricia. I have a meeting." "Of course, dear. We'll talk later about the dry cleaning." I hung up, feeling a headache brewing behind my eyes. Ethan lingered in the doorway, concern etched on his face. "Everything okay?" he asked. I forced a smile. "Just the usual mother-in-law drama." Ethan shook his head. "I don't know how you put up with it. You're a saint, Olivia." If only he knew. If only anyone knew the half of what I dealt with daily. I gathered my notes for the meeting, trying to push thoughts of Patricia out of my mind. As we walked to the conference room, Ethan leaned in. "Hey, a bunch of us are going for drinks after work. Want to join?" The offer was tempting, a chance to unwind, to be around people who actually appreciated me, but I knew what awaited me at home if I was late. "I can't," I said, regret coloring my voice. "Connor's expecting me." Ethan's disappointment was palpable, but he nodded understandingly. The meeting dragged on, but my mind was elsewhere. I thought about Connor, about how he'd react if he knew the truth about my job, about how much I really made. It was a secret I'd kept for years, partly out of habit, partly out of fear of Patricia's reaction. As I drove home that evening, my phone buzzed with a text from Connor. "Mom's coming over for dinner. Pick up some wine?" I gripped the steering wheel tighter, my knuckles turning white. Of course, Patricia was coming over. She always found a way to insert herself into our lives. I walked into our house, arms laden with groceries and the requested wine. The sound of Patricia's laughter drifted from the kitchen, along with the aroma of something burning. "Olivia, dear," Patricia called out. "We're in here. I'm just showing Connor how to properly cook a roast. The poor boy's been living off your attempts at cooking for far too long." I set the bags down, taking a moment to compose myself before entering the kitchen. Connor stood by the stove, looking lost, while Patricia fussed over a blackened piece of meat. "Hi, honey," Connor said, giving me a quick peck on the cheek. "Mom's teaching me how to cook." I forced a smile. "That's great. I brought wine." Patricia clucked her tongue. "Oh, Olivia, you know Connor prefers beer with his dinner. Wine is so pretentious." I felt something snap inside me. The stress of the day, the constant criticisms, it all came to a head. "Actually," I said, my voice tight, "I brought the wine for me. I think I'm going to need it." The kitchen fell silent. Connor looked bewildered, while Patricia's eyes narrowed. I knew I'd pay for that comment later, but for now, I savored the small victory. As I poured myself a generous glass of wine, I couldn't help but wonder how long I could keep living like this. Something had to give. And soon. I never imagined my life could get worse, but fate has a twisted sense of humor. It was a crisp Sunday morning when Connor dropped the bombshell. "Honey," he said, his voice hesitant, "Mom's lease is up, and she's having trouble finding a new place. I told her she could stay with us for a while." The mug I was holding slipped from my grasp, shattering on the kitchen floor. Coffee splattered everywhere, but I barely noticed. "You did what?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. Connor rushed to clean up the mess, avoiding my gaze. "It's just temporary, Olivia. She's family. We can't leave her without a place to stay." I stood there, frozen, as the reality of the situation sank in. Patricia, living with us. The thought made me physically ill. "When?" I managed to ask. "She's moving in today," Connor replied, still not meeting my eyes. Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. Connor practically sprinted to answer it, leaving me alone in the kitchen, surrounded by broken ceramic and spilled coffee. Patricia's voice floated through the house, saccharine sweet. "Oh, Connor, darling! Thank you so much for this. You're such a good son." I took a deep breath, plastered on a fake smile, and went to greet my new housemate. The next few days were a blur of passive-aggressive comments and thinly veiled insults. Patricia had taken over our guest room, but her presence seemed to fill every corner of the house. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, Patricia sauntered into the kitchen. "Olivia, dear," she said, her tone dripping with false concern, "don't you think those pants are a bit tight? A woman your age should be more mindful of her figure." I gripped the knife I was using to chop vegetables tighter. "My pants are fine, Patricia," I said through gritted teeth. She tsked. "If you say so, dear. I just worry about Connor. Men can be so easily tempted when their wives let themselves go." Before I could retort, Connor walked in. "Something smells great," he said, oblivious to the tension. Patricia beamed at him. "I was just giving Olivia some fashion advice. You know how I worry about you two." Connor laughed. "Mom, you don't need to worry about us. Olivia and I are fine." I turned back to the stove, fighting back tears of frustration. We were not fine. We were far from fine. The next morning, I woke up to find Patricia rearranging our living room. She had moved all the furniture and was hanging new curtains. "Patricia," I said, trying to keep my voice level, "what are you doing?" She turned, a picture of innocence. "Oh, Olivia, I hope you don't mind. This room needed a woman's touch. It was so drab before." I closed my eyes, counting to 10. When I opened them, Patricia was still there, smiling that infuriating smile. "This is my house," I said quietly. "You can't just change things without asking." Patricia's smile faltered for a moment before returning full force. "Don't be silly, dear. This is Connor's house too, and he loves what I've done with the place." As if on cue, Connor walked in. "Wow, Mom, the room looks great." I felt something inside me snap. Without a word, I grabbed my keys and stormed out of the house. I found myself in the parking lot at work, not even remembering the drive. Ethan was just arriving, and his face lit up when he saw me. "Olivia." What are you doing here on a Saturday? I burst into tears, the stress of the past few days finally overwhelming me. Ethan rushed over, concern etched on his face. Hey, he said softly, pulling me into a hug. What's wrong? Through my sobs, I managed to explain the situation. Ethan listened, his face growing darker with each word. Olivia, he said when I finished, you can't keep living like this. It's not healthy. I nodded, wiping my eyes. I know, but what can I do? She's Connor's mother. Ethan looked at me, his eyes intense. You have options, Olivia, more than you realize. As I stood there in the parking lot, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe Ethan was right. Maybe I did have options, and maybe it was time I started exploring them. The weeks that followed Patricia's move-in were a living nightmare. Every morning, I'd wake up hoping it had all been a bad dream, only to hear her shrill voice echoing through the house. Today was no different. Olivia, Patricia called from downstairs. Connor's shirts need ironing. I gritted my teeth, counting to 10 before responding. I'm getting ready for work, Patricia. Connor can iron his own shirts. The sound of footsteps on the stairs made my heart race. Patricia appeared in the doorway, her face a mask of disapproval. A good wife takes care of her husband, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. But I suppose that's too much to ask of you. Before I could retort, Connor appeared behind his mother. It's okay, Mom, I can do it myself. Patricia turned to him, all sweetness and light. Oh, honey, you shouldn't have to. That's what wives are for. I felt something snap inside me. That's it, I said, my voice low and dangerous. I'm leaving for work. Don't wait up. I brushed past them both, ignoring Connor's confused calls. As I slammed the front door behind me, I felt a mixture of relief and guilt. Relief to be away from Patricia's constant criticism, guilt for leaving Connor to deal with her alone. At work, I threw myself into my projects, desperate for any distraction. Ethan noticed my frazzled state and cornered me in the break room. Olivia, he said gently, you can't keep going on like this. You look exhausted. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. I know, Ethan, but what can I do? She's always there, always criticizing, always undermining me. Ethan's eyes hardened. You need to stand up for yourself. Tell Connor how you feel. I laughed bitterly. I've tried. He just doesn't see it. To him, she's just being helpful. As I spoke, my phone buzzed with a text from Connor. Mom wants to know what's for dinner. She says your cooking could use some work. I showed Ethan the message, my hands shaking with anger. He read it, his face darkening. That's it, he said firmly. You're coming home with me tonight. You need a break from all this. Part of me wanted to protest, to be the dutiful wife and go home. But a larger part, the part that was tired of being belittled and ignored, nodded in agreement. I texted Connor back. Working late, order takeout. Ethan's apartment was small but cozy, a stark contrast to the tension-filled house I'd left behind. As we sat on his couch, nursing glasses of wine, I felt myself relax for the first time in weeks. Thank you, I said softly. I didn't realize how much I needed this. Ethan smiled, his eyes warm. Anytime, Olivia. You deserve so much better than what you're getting at home. As the night wore on, I found myself opening up to Ethan in a way I hadn't with anyone in years. I told him about my secret career success, about the constant pressure from Patricia, about Connor's indifference. Why do you stay? Ethan asked, his voice gentle but probing. I stared into my wine glass, searching for an answer. I don't know anymore. Just then, my phone exploded with notifications, missed calls and texts from Connor and Patricia. I scrolled through them, my heart sinking with each message. Where are you? Mom's worried sick. How could you be so selfish? A good wife doesn't stay out all night. The last message made me see red. Without thinking, I dialed Connor's number. Olivia, he answered, his voice a mixture of relief and anger. Where the hell are you? I'm safe, I said, my voice steady despite the anger coursing through me. And I'm not coming home tonight. What? But Mom, I cut him off. No, Connor, not this time. I can't do this anymore. Your mother, your indifference, all of it. I'm done. As I hung up, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Ethan looked at me, a mixture of concern and admiration in his eyes. What now? He asked softly. I took a deep breath, feeling for the first time in years like I was in control of my own life. Now, I said, I start fighting back. The morning after my night at Ethan's, I returned home to face the music. As I stepped through the front door, the silence was deafening. Then, like a storm breaking, Patricia's voice rang out. "Well, look who finally decided to grace us with her presence," she sneered from the living room. Connor sat beside her, his face a mask of disappointment and confusion. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Patricia scoffed. "About your shameful behavior? I should say so." "No," I replied, looking directly at Connor. "About us, about this situation." Connor shifted uncomfortably. "Olivia, can't we just forget about last night? Mom was worried sick." I felt my resolve hardening. "No, Connor, we can't just forget. This isn't working. Your mother living here, her constant criticism, your indifference, it's killing me." Patricia stood up, her eyes flashing. "How dare you, after everything we've done for you?" I laughed bitterly. "Done for me? You've done nothing but tear me down since the day I married Connor." The argument escalated quickly, voices rising, accusations flying. In the heat of the moment, I revealed my secret. "You have no idea what I've sacrificed for this family," I shouted. "I'm the one who's been supporting us. My job, my success, it's all been for us." The room fell silent. Connor stared at me, shocked. Patricia's face contorted with a mixture of disbelief and anger. "What are you talking about?" Connor asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Before I could respond, a wave of dizziness hit me. The room started to spin, and I felt my knees buckle. The last thing I heard was Connor calling my name as everything went black. I woke up in a hospital bed, the steady beep of monitors filling the room. Ethan was by my side, concern etched on his face. "What happened?" I croaked, my throat dry. "You collapsed at home," Ethan explained softly. "Exhaustion and severe stress," the doctors said. "You've been out for a day." I closed my eyes, the memories flooding back. "Connor?" Ethan's expression darkened. "He was here earlier, left when I arrived." A nurse entered, checking my vitals. "Mrs. Thompson, how are you feeling?" "Like I've been hit by a truck," I admitted. She nodded sympathetically. "That's to be expected. Your body's been under extreme stress. You need rest and a major lifestyle change." As she left, Ethan took my hand. "Olivia, this can't go on. You're killing yourself." I nodded, tears welling up. "I know, but what can I do? It's my home, my marriage." "Is it worth your life?" Ethan asked gently. Before I could answer, the door opened. Connor walked in, looking haggard. His eyes narrowed when he saw Ethan. "Could you give us a minute?" he asked, his tone clipped. Ethan squeezed my hand before leaving, throwing a concerned glance over his shoulder. Connor sat in the chair Ethan had vacated. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, his voice a mixture of hurt and anger. "About your job, about how you were feeling." I sighed, feeling drained. "Would you have listened? Every time I tried to talk about your mother, you dismissed my concerns." Connor ran a hand through his hair. "I never meant. I didn't realize." "That's the problem, Connor," I said softly. "You never realized. You never saw how much I was struggling." He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "What do we do now?" he asked. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time in years I saw clearly. I saw a man who, despite his good intentions, had consistently chosen his mother over his wife, a man who had stood by while I was belittled and broken down. "I don't know," I replied honestly, "but I know I can't go back to the way things were. I won't survive it." Connor nodded slowly, a look of resignation crossing his face. "And your colleague, Ethan?" "He's been a friend when I needed one," I said firmly. "Nothing more." As Connor left, promising to return later, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. For the first time in years, I was putting myself first. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Things had to change, and they had to change now. After a week in the hospital, I returned home with a mix of dread and determination. The house was eerily quiet as I stepped inside, my footsteps echoing in the hallway. "Welcome back," Connor said, emerging from the kitchen. His voice was strained, the tension between us palpable. I nodded, unsure of what to say. The revelation of my financial success still hung in the air, unaddressed. "Where's Patricia?" I asked, dreading the answer. Connor sighed. "In the guest room. She's not happy," I snorted. "When is she ever?" As if summoned by our conversation, Patricia appeared at the top of the stairs. Her eyes narrowed as she saw me. "So the prodigal daughter-in-law returns," she sneered. "I hope you're proud of yourself, worrying us all like that." I felt my blood begin to boil. Proud? Of being worked to the point of collapse? Of being constantly belittled and criticized in my own home? Patricia descended the stairs, her face a mask of indignation. How dare you? After everything we've done for you. Enough, Mom, Connor interjected, but his voice lacked conviction. I laughed bitterly. Everything you've done for me? You mean moving in uninvited? Criticizing my every move, making me feel worthless in my own home? Patricia's face reddened. I've only ever tried to help. It's not my fault you're so sensitive. But then again, what can we expect from someone with your background? The room fell silent. Connor's eyes widened in shock. What do you mean by that? I asked, my voice dangerously low. Patricia smirked, sensing she'd struck a nerve. Well, dear, it's no secret that you come from, shall we say, humble beginnings. No wonder you struggle to be a proper wife. You never had a good example, did you? I felt as if I'd been slapped. How dare you bring my parents into this? Mom, that's enough, Connor said, but Patricia was on a roll. It's the truth, isn't it? Your poor deceased parents. What would they think of you now? Lying about your job, neglecting your wifely duties. Something inside me snapped. Years of pent-up frustration and anger came pouring out. My parents would be proud of me, I shouted. They taught me to work hard, to stand up for myself. They loved me unconditionally, something you clearly know nothing about. Patricia gasped, clutching her chest in mock offense. Well, I never. No, you never. I cut her off. You never cared about anyone but yourself. You've manipulated Connor his entire life, and now you're trying to do the same to me. But I won't let you. Not anymore. I turned to Connor, who stood frozen, his eyes darting between his mother and me. Connor, I said, my voice shaking with emotion, I can't do this anymore. I won't live like this. It's her or me. The silence that followed was deafening. Connor opened his mouth, then closed it again at a loss for words. Patricia recovered first. Don't be ridiculous, Olivia. Connor would never choose you over his own mother. Would you, darling? Connor's lack of response was all the answer I needed. In that moment, I saw our entire marriage laid bare. Years of compromise, of putting everyone else's needs before my own, of slowly losing myself. I see, I said quietly. The calm that washed over me was almost frightening. Then I've made my decision. I walked past them both, heading for the stairs. Connor finally found his voice. Olivia, wait, where are you going? I paused, looking back at them. Patricia stood triumphant, while Connor looked lost and confused. I'm packing my bags, I said. I'm leaving. As I climbed the stairs, I heard Patricia's smug voice. Good riddance, you'll be back, begging for forgiveness. But I knew I wouldn't. For the first time in years, I felt free. The road ahead was uncertain, but anything was better than staying in this toxic environment. As I threw clothes into a suitcase, I made a silent promise to myself. No more compromising my worth, no more letting others dictate my life. It was time to reclaim my independence, my self-respect, and my happiness. The Olivia who walked out of that house was not the same one who had entered it years ago. She was stronger, wiser, and ready to face whatever came next, alone if necessary. I stood in the lobby of the law firm, my heart pounding. This was it, the point of no return. I'd spent the last week in a hotel, ignoring Connor's calls and texts, steeling myself for this moment. As I rode the elevator to the 15th floor, I replayed the events that led me here, each floor bringing a new memory of hurt and disappointment. The receptionist ushered me into a plush office where a stern-faced woman sat behind an imposing desk. Mrs. Thompson, she greeted, gesturing for me to sit. I'm Margaret Winters. You're here to discuss divorce proceedings? I nodded, my throat suddenly dry. Yes, I can't continue in my marriage. As we discussed the details, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. This was the end of a chapter in my life, but also the beginning of a new one. Halfway through our meeting, my phone buzzed incessantly. Connor's name flashed on the screen. I silenced it, but the interruption had shaken me. Is everything all right? Margaret asked, her eyes sharp. I took a deep breath. Yes, it's just my husband. He doesn't know I'm here. Margaret's expression softened slightly. Mrs. Thompson, are you sure about this? Divorce is a big step. I'm sure, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. I can't live like this anymore. As we wrapped up the meeting, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Ethan. Olivia, where are you? Connor's here at the office looking for you. He seems really upset. My blood ran cold. How did Connor know where I worked? I'd always kept my job a secret from him and Patricia. I have to go, I told Margaret abruptly, gathering my things. I rushed out of the office, my mind racing. As the elevator descended, I tried to calm my nerves. What was Connor doing at my workplace? How much did he know? The doors opened, and I stepped into the lobby, only to come face to face with Connor and Patricia. Olivia, Connor said, his voice a mixture of relief and anger. What's going on? Where have you been? I stood my ground despite the urge to run. I told you, Connor, I'm leaving. I can't do this anymore. Patricia stepped forward, her eyes flashing. Don't be ridiculous, Olivia. You're coming home with us right now. No, I'm not, I said firmly. I'm done letting you control my life. Connor looked bewildered. Control your life? Olivia, what are you talking about? I laughed bitterly. You really don't see it, do you? How your mother has manipulated every aspect of our marriage, how you've always chosen her over me. That's not true, Connor protested weakly. Isn't it? I challenged. Then why are you here with her instead of coming to find me on your own? Connor fell silent, and I saw a flicker of realization in his eyes. Patricia, sensing she was losing control, changed tactics. Olivia, dear, we're just worried about you. You've been acting so strangely lately. Is it stress from work? Maybe you should take some time off. My work is not the problem, I said, my voice rising. My work is the only thing that's kept me sane. Do you want to know the truth, Connor? I'm the one who's been supporting us. My job, my success, it's all been for us, and you never even noticed. The lobby fell silent. Connor's face paled, while Patricia looked like she'd been slapped. What do you mean? Connor stammered. I took a deep breath, years of pent-up frustration pouring out. I mean that while you've been letting your mother run our lives, I've been working my way up in my career. I'm a senior executive now, Connor. I make 3 times what you do. And I've kept it a secret because I knew Patricia would find a way to use it against me, to make me feel small and insignificant like she always does. Patricia's face contorted with rage. You ungrateful little... No, I cut her off. I'm done being grateful for your abuse. I'm done pretending everything is fine when it's not. I'm filing for divorce, Connor. It's over. As I turned to leave, Connor grabbed my arm. Olivia, please. We can work this out. I had no idea. I pulled away, tears stinging my eyes. That's the problem, Connor. You never had any idea, and now it's too late. I walked out of the lobby, leaving Connor and Patricia standing there, shocked and silent. As I stepped into the sunlight, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in years, I felt free. The days following my confrontation with Connor and Patricia were a blur of legal meetings and emotional upheaval. I threw myself into work, grateful for the distraction. Ethan had been a rock, offering support without pushing for more. One evening, as I was leaving the office, my phone rang. Patricia's name flashed on the screen. I hesitated, then answered. Olivia. Her voice was uncharacteristically soft. We need to talk, please. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her at a nearby cafe. As I walked in, I saw her sitting alone, looking smaller and older than I remembered. Thank you for coming, she said as I sat down. I nodded, wary. What do you want, Patricia? She took a deep breath. I want you to reconsider the divorce. Connor is devastated. I made mistakes, but surely we can work this out. I laughed bitterly. Work it out? After years of your manipulation and Connor's indifference? It's too late for that. Patricia's eyes flashed with a familiar anger, but she quickly composed herself. Olivia, be reasonable. Think about what you're giving up. The stability, the family. The abuse? I cut in. The constant criticism? The feeling of never being good enough? I was trying to help, Patricia protested. I only wanted what was best for Connor, for both of you. I shook my head. No, Patricia, you wanted control. You wanted to keep Connor dependent on you and me in my place. Patricia's facade cracked. And what's so wrong with that? I raised Connor. I know what's best for him. You're just some girl who wormed her way into his life. I'm his wife, I snapped, my voice rising. Or at least, I was. I loved him, supported him, built a life with him, and you couldn't stand it. Patricia leaned forward, her voice low and urgent. Listen to me, Olivia. You don't understand what you're doing. Connor, he's not as strong as you think. He needs me. He needs us. Suddenly I understood. This isn't about Connor at all, is it? It's about you. You're afraid of losing the lifestyle my income provides. Patricia's face paled. That's not true. I just want what's best for my son. No, I said, feeling a strange calm settle over me. You want what's best for you. You've always used Connor as an excuse to control everything around you, but it ends now. I stood up, ready to leave, but Patricia grabbed my arm. You can't do this. You have no idea what you're giving up. The money, the status. I pulled away, my voice steady. I earned that money, Patricia. I built that status. And I did it all while you and Connor belittled and ignored me. I don't need either of you to be successful. Patricia's desperation turned to anger. You ungrateful little bitch. After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me? By abandoning my son? The cafe fell silent, all eyes on us. I felt a lifetime of pent-up emotions bubbling to the surface. Done for me? I said, my voice dangerously low. You've done nothing but tear me down since the day I married Connor. You've criticized my cooking, my housekeeping, my career. You've manipulated Connor against me at every turn. And now you have the audacity to act like I owe you something? Patricia stood up, her face red with rage. You'll regret this, Olivia. You think you can just walk away? I'll make sure you lose everything in this divorce. Everything. I laughed, a sound that surprised even me. Go ahead and try, Patricia. I'm not afraid of you anymore. As I turned to leave, Patricia called out one last time. He'll never let you go, you know. Connor will fight this divorce every step of the way. I paused at the door, looking back at the woman who had made my life hell for so long. Then let him fight. I'm done being the victim in this story. Walking out of that cafe, I felt lighter than I had in years. The road ahead would be difficult, I knew that. But for the first time, I was ready to face it on my own terms. No more compromises, no more sacrifices. It was time to reclaim my life, whatever the cost. 6 months after my confrontation with Patricia, I stood in my new apartment, surrounded by boxes and the promise of a fresh start. The divorce had been finalized last week, and despite Connor's initial threats, it had gone smoother than I'd expected. My financial success had been my ace in the hole, leaving Patricia and Connor with no leverage. As I unpacked, my phone buzzed. It was Ethan. Hey, I answered, a smile in my voice. How's the unpacking going? He asked. Slowly but surely, I replied. Want to come over and help? There was a pause. Actually, I'm already outside your building. I brought dinner. My heart skipped a beat. Ethan had been a constant support throughout the divorce, but we'd kept things strictly platonic. Until now. I buzzed him up, suddenly nervous. As I opened the door, I saw Ethan standing there, holding takeout bags and wearing a hesitant smile. I hope this is okay, he said. I pulled him into a hug. It's more than okay. As we ate, sitting on boxes because I hadn't unpacked my furniture yet, Ethan filled me in on the office gossip. Apparently, my divorce and subsequent promotion had caused quite a stir. Oh, and you'll never guess who I saw today, Ethan said, his tone cautious. I raised an eyebrow. Who? Connor and Patricia. They were at the bank, looking pretty stressed. I felt a twinge of something. Not regret exactly, but a complex mix of emotions. How did they look? Ethan hesitated. Not great. Connor looked like he hadn't slept in days, and Patricia, well, she's definitely not living the high life anymore. I nodded, processing this information. Part of me felt a grim satisfaction, but another part felt an unexpected pang of sadness. Olivia, Ethan said softly, are you okay? I took a deep breath. You know what? I really am. For the first time in years, I feel free. Ethan reached out, taking my hand. You deserve to be happy, Olivia. You've been through so much. As I looked into his eyes, I felt a warmth I hadn't experienced in a long time. But before I could respond, my phone rang. It was Connor. I hesitated, then answered. Hello? Olivia, Connor's voice was strained. I need your help. I closed my eyes, steeling myself. What is it, Connor? It's Mom. She's not doing well. The stress of everything, it's taken a toll on her health. We can't afford her medical bills, and I don't know what to do. I felt a surge of conflicting emotions, anger at the audacity of him asking for help after everything, pity for Patricia's situation, and a strange sense of power, knowing I held their fate in my hands. Connor, I said, my voice steady, I'm sorry about Patricia's health, but I can't help you, not anymore. But Olivia? No, Connor, you and Patricia made your choices. Now you have to live with them, just like I had to live with the consequences of your actions for years. There was a long silence. Then, I understand. I'm sorry, Olivia, for everything. As I hung up, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The last tie to my old life had been severed. Ethan was watching me, concern etched on his face. "Everything okay?" I smiled, a genuine, unburdened smile. "Yes, everything is finally okay." I stood up, pulling Ethan with me. "Come on, help me unpack these boxes. I think it's time to start filling this new life with some happy memories." As we worked side by side, laughing and sharing stories, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The road had been long and painful, but I had emerged stronger, wiser, and truly free. Patricia and Connor's downfall wasn't a victory to celebrate, but a reminder of the importance of independence and self-respect. And as I looked at Ethan, I saw the possibility of a future filled with mutual respect and genuine love. This was my new chapter, my fresh start, and for the first time in years, I was excited about what the future held. The woman who had entered that toxic marriage years ago was gone. In her place stood a stronger, more confident Olivia, ready to face whatever life threw her way. As night fell and the last box was unpacked, I stood at my window, looking out at the city lights. I was no longer Connor's wife or Patricia's daughter-in-law. I was just Olivia. And that, I realized, was more than enough. The click of my heels echoed through the marble foyer as I stepped into my home, the scent of success clinging to me like expensive perfume. Another day, another deal closed. I was riding high on the wave of my latest business triumph, ready to celebrate with a glass of Chardonnay and a long hot bath. But as I rounded the corner into my living room, my world tilted on its axis. "Hello, Emma." The deep, familiar voice sent a chill down my spine. There, lounging on my cream leather sofa as if he owned the place, sat Ethan, my ex-husband, the man I'd thought I'd never have to see again. I froze, my hand still on the light switch. "What the hell are you doing here?" Ethan's lips curled into that infuriating smirk I used to find so charming. Now, it just made my blood boil. "Now, is that any way to greet your former better half?" "It is when said better half breaks into my house," I snapped, dropping my briefcase and crossing my arms. "I'll ask you one more time. What are you doing here?" Ethan stood, his tall frame unfolding like a predator ready to pounce. "I'm here to discuss the house, actually. Alice and I want to move in." The name hit me like a slap. Alice, my sister. The woman Ethan had left me for. "You've got to be kidding me." "I assure you, I'm not." Ethan's eyes gleamed with a hint of malice. "We figure it's only fair. After all, you couldn't give me what I wanted. What was the point of this big, beautiful house if it was never going to be filled with the pitter-patter of little feet?" My jaw clenched so hard I thought my teeth might crack. "Get out!" I hissed. "Come on, Emma. Be reasonable. You're obviously doing well for yourself." He gestured to my designer suit. "Surely you can afford to move somewhere more suitable for a single, childless woman?" The words stung more than I cared to admit. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. I said, "Get out. Now, before I call the police." Ethan held up his hands in mock surrender. All right. No need to get nasty. We'll discuss this another time, when you're feeling more cooperative." He sauntered towards the door, pausing as he passed me. "You know, Emma, this stubbornness of yours is exactly why things didn't work out between us. Well, that and your shortcomings." As the door slammed behind him, I sagged against the wall, my legs suddenly weak. The nerve of that man, the absolute gall. To show up here in my home, demanding I give it up for him and my traitor of a sister. And those cruel jabs about my supposed infertility. I pushed myself upright, fury replacing shock. Oh, Ethan had no idea what he'd just started. If he thought I was going to roll over and let him and Alice take what was mine, he had another thing coming. I stalked to my home office, yanking open the bottom drawer of my desk. There, nestled among old files and forgotten paperwork, was a thick manila envelope. I pulled it out, running my fingers over the embossed logo of my lawyer's firm. Inside were the deed to the house, ironclad and in my name alone, along with other documents I'd hoped never to need. But Ethan had forced my hand. As I spread the papers across my desk, a grim smile spread across my face. Let the games begin, I thought. "You want a war, Ethan? I'll give you a war, and this time I won't lose." I barely slept that night, tossing and turning as Ethan's words echoed in my head. By morning, I was a bundle of nerves and determination. I needed to act fast. My first stop, my lawyer's office. "Emma, what a surprise," Richard said, ushering me into his plush office. "What brings you here so early?" I slapped the manila folder on his desk. "Ethan's back. and he wants the house. Richard's eyebrows shot up. I see. Well, let's take a look, shall we? As he pored over the documents, I paced the room, my mind racing. How dare Ethan think he could waltz back into my life and demand anything? And with Alice of all people? Well, Emma, Richard's voice snapped me back to attention. I have good news and bad news. I braced myself. Give it to me straight. The good news is, the house is legally yours. Ethan has no claim to it whatsoever. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. And the bad news? Richard's face grew serious. The bad news is, if Ethan's willing to try this, he might not stop here. We need to be prepared for other potential attacks. My stomach churned. What kind of attacks? Financial, legal, personal? It's hard to say. But given your history, and the fact that he's involved with your sister, things could get messy. I sank into a chair, suddenly feeling every bit of my age. God, Richard, how did I get here? His eyes softened. Emma, may I speak frankly? I nodded, bracing myself. You're one of the strongest women I know. You built an empire from nothing after Ethan left you. Don't let him shake you now. His words hit home, and I felt a spark of my old fire returning. You're right. I've worked too hard to let him take anything from me now. As I left Richard's office, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Meet me at Café Noir, 1 p.m., Alice. My sister, the betrayer. My hand shook as I typed a reply. Fine. The cafe was bustling when I arrived, but I spotted Alice immediately. She hadn't changed much, still beautiful, still with that air of innocence that had always driven me crazy. Emma, she said, standing as I approached, thank you for coming. I sat down, not bothering with pleasantries. What do you want, Alice? She flinched at my tone. I wanted to explain, about Ethan, about the house. There's nothing to explain, I cut her off. You betrayed me. Both of you did, and now you have the audacity to demand my home. It's not like that, Alice pleaded. Ethan, he's not well, Emma. He's desperate. I leaned back, crossing my arms. Not my problem. But it is. Alice's voice rose, drawing stares from nearby tables. She lowered it to a whisper. He's dying, Emma. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. What? Cancer. Stage 4. He wanted to make things right before. She trailed off, tears in her eyes. For a moment, just a moment, I felt a pang of sympathy. Then I remembered all the pain, all the sleepless nights, all the tears I'd shed because of them. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, my voice steady. But it doesn't change anything. The house is mine. End of story. I stood to leave, but Alice grabbed my arm. Please, Emma, for old time's sake, for family. I yanked my arm away, fury rising in my chest. Family? You gave up the right to call me family when you slept with my husband. As I stormed out of the cafe, my phone buzzed again. Another text, this time from Ethan. I know Alice told you. Please, Emma, I need to see you. One last time. I stared at the screen, my finger hovering over the reply button. What should I do? The rational part of me said to ignore it, to protect myself. But another part, a part I thought long dead, whispered of closure, of answers long overdue. With a deep breath, I made my decision and began to type. I sat in my car, staring at the familiar facade of the diner where Ethan and I had our first date. My fingers drummed nervously on the steering wheel as memories flooded back, unbidden and unwelcome. Taking a deep breath, I stepped out of the car and walked inside. The bell above the door chimed, just as it had all those years ago. Ethan was already there, hunched over a cup of coffee. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. When he raised his eyes to meet mine, I saw a flicker of the man I once loved. Emma, he said, his voice rough. Thank you for coming. I slid into the booth across from him, my guard up. You said you wanted to talk, so talk. Ethan sighed, running a hand through his thinning hair. I know I have no right to ask anything of you, but I'm dying, Emma. I don't have much time left, and I want to make things right. Make things right? I scoffed. You think you can undo years of pain and betrayal with one conversation? No, of course not, he said quickly, but I thought maybe we could start with the truth. I leaned back, crossing my arms. The truth? That's rich, coming from you. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. I know, I've been a coward, but please, Emma, let me explain. Against my better judgment, I nodded. When we were together, I was scared of commitment, scared of the future. And when we couldn't conceive, I used it as an excuse. I blamed you because it was easier than facing my own fears. I felt a lump forming in my throat. And Alice? Ethan looked down, shame etched on his face. Alice was a mistake, a terrible, unforgivable mistake. She was there, she was easy, and I was weak. You broke my heart, I whispered, surprised by the raw emotion in my voice. I know, Ethan said, reaching across the table. I pulled my hand away before he could touch it. And I'll regret it for the rest of my life, which, as it turns out, isn't very long. I felt a pang of sympathy, quickly squashed by years of hurt. What do you want from me, Ethan? Forgiveness? Absolution? He shook his head. No, I don't deserve either of those things. I wanted you to know the truth, and I wanted to apologize for everything. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of our shared history hanging between us. The house, I said finally. Why now? Ethan's face crumpled. It's not for me. It's for Alice. I wanted to leave her something, some security. I felt a flash of anger. So you thought you'd take it from me again? I wasn't thinking straight, Ethan admitted. I was desperate. But I see now how wrong I was. The house is yours, Emma. It always should have been. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from Mark. Everything okay? Lucy's asking for you. Reality crashed back in. My husband, my daughter, my life now. I stood abruptly. I have to go. Ethan looked up, a mix of sadness and understanding in his eyes. Of course. Thank you for listening, Emma. It means more than you know. As I turned to leave, he called out, Emma? I paused, not turning back. I truly am sorry for everything, and I'm glad you found happiness. You deserve it. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak, and walked out of the diner. As the door closed behind me, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The past was the past. I had a future to focus on. But as I drove home, a nagging thought persisted. If Ethan was telling the truth about his illness, what did that mean for Alice? And more importantly, what did it mean for me? I pulled into my driveway, my mind whirling. As I reached for the door handle, I froze. There, on my front porch, stood Alice. And she wasn't alone. A young boy, no more than 5 or 6, clung to her hand, a boy with Ethan's eyes and my sister's smile. Emma, Alice said, her voice trembling. There's something I need to tell you. I stood frozen, staring at Alice and the boy on my porch. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Emma, please, Alice pleaded. Can we come in? I promise I'll explain everything. Against my better judgment, I nodded and unlocked the door. As they stepped inside, I caught a whiff of Alice's familiar perfume, mixed with the scent of crayons and fruit snacks that seemed to cling to all young children. Who's this? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Alice took a deep breath. This is Ethan Jr. He's your nephew. The world tilted on its axis. I gripped the back of a chair to steady myself. My nephew? Yes, Alice said, her eyes brimming with tears. He's 5 years old, and he's the reason I'm here. I sank into the chair, my legs suddenly unable to support me. I don't understand. Why now? Why are you telling me this now? Alice knelt down next to Ethan Jr., smoothing his hair. Sweetie, why don't you go play with your tablet in the living room while Mommy talks to Aunt Emma? The boy nodded and scampered off, leaving Alice and me alone in the kitchen. Emma, I know I have no right to ask anything of you, Alice began. But with Ethan, with his condition, I'm scared. I don't know how I'm going to take care of EJ on my own. I felt a surge of anger. So what, you thought you'd come here and use your son to manipulate me? To get the house? No, Alice cried. That's not it at all. I need your help, Emma. You're the only family we have left. I laughed bitterly. Family? You destroyed our family when you slept with my husband. I know, Alice whispered, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. But please, Emma, this isn't about me. It's about EJ. He's innocent in all of this. I stood up abruptly, pacing the kitchen. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, betrayal, confusion, and underneath it all, a tiny spark of curiosity about the nephew I never knew I had. Why didn't you tell me before? I demanded. 5 years, Alice. You kept this from me for 5 years. Alice hung her head. I was ashamed and scared. Ethan, he didn't want anyone to know. He said it would complicate things. Complicate things? I scoffed. As if they weren't complicated enough already. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from Mark. On my way home with Lucy. Everything okay? Reality came crashing back. My husband, my daughter, my life now. How could I explain this to them? You need to leave, I said, my voice shaking. I can't deal with this right now. Alice stood, her eyes pleading. Emma, please. I know I have no right to ask, but... You're right, I cut her off. You don't have any right to ask, not after everything you've done. As if on cue, Ethan Jr. came bounding back into the kitchen. Mommy, can we go home now? I'm hungry. I looked at the boy, really looked at him for the first time. He had Ethan's eyes, but Alice's smile, and something else, something that reminded me of myself at that age. In that moment, I made a decision that would change everything. Wait, I said, just as Alice was gathering her things. I need time to process all this, but I can't just turn my back on family, even if that family has hurt me. Alice's eyes widened with hope. What are you saying? I took a deep breath. I'm saying, let's talk, really talk, about everything, and then we'll figure out where to go from there. As Alice nodded, tears streaming down her face, I heard the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. Mark and Lucy were home. I steeled myself for what was sure to be the most difficult conversation of my life. But as I looked at Ethan Jr.'s innocent face, I knew I had to try. For his sake, if nothing else. Come on, I said, gesturing to the living room. We have a lot to discuss. The days following Alice's revelation blurred together in a haze of sleepless nights and tense conversations. Mark was understanding, if not a little shocked, but Lucy was too young to fully grasp the situation. I found myself torn between my past and present, struggling to reconcile the two. One particularly grueling day at work, I sat in my office, staring blankly at my computer screen. The numbers on the quarterly report swam before my eyes, refusing to make sense. A knock on my door jolted me back to reality. Come in, I called, straightening up. My assistant Sarah poked her head in. Miss Thompson, there's someone here to see you. He says it's urgent. My heart skipped a beat. Who is it? He says his name is Ethan. I felt the blood drain from my face. Send him in, I heard myself say, even as my mind screamed in protest. Ethan walked in, looking even more haggard than the last time I'd seen him. The cancer was taking its toll. Emma, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Thank you for seeing me. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. What do you want, Ethan? He sat down heavily, his eyes never leaving mine. I know Alice told you about EJ. I wanted to explain. Explain? I scoffed. Explain how you kept my nephew a secret for 5 years, how you're trying to use him to manipulate me now. Ethan flinched. It's not like that. I made mistakes, Emma. Terrible mistakes. But EJ, he's innocent in all this. So I've been told, I said coldly. I'm not here to ask for forgiveness, Ethan continued. I know I don't deserve it, but I am asking you to consider helping Alice and EJ after I'm gone. I leaned back in my chair, studying him. Why should I? Because despite everything, you're a good person, Emma. Better than I ever was. He paused, taking a shaky breath. And because I have something to offer in return. My eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? Ethan reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded document. This is the deed to my family's vacation property in the mountains. It's worth a considerable amount. I want you to have it. I stared at the paper, my mind reeling. Why? Consider it restitution, Ethan said. For everything I put you through. Use it, sell it, do whatever you want with it. But please, just consider helping Alice and EJ. As I reached for the document, my phone buzzed. A text from Mark. Emergency at Lucy's school. Can you come? Panic gripped me. I have to go, I said, standing abruptly. Ethan nodded, rising slowly. Just think about it, Emma. That's all I ask. I rushed out of the office, my mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. By the time I reached Lucy's school, I was a mess of anxiety and confusion. The principal met me at the door. Miss Thompson, thank you for coming so quickly. What happened? Is Lucy okay? I demanded. She's fine, but there was an incident. Lucy got into a fight with another student. I blinked in disbelief. Lucy? My Lucy? The principal nodded gravely. She was defending a younger boy who was being bullied. When we asked her why she did it, she said she was protecting her cousin. My world tilted on its axis. How did Lucy know about EJ? As I walked into the principal's office, I saw my daughter sitting there, her chin held high despite the tear tracks on her cheeks. In that moment, looking at her fierce determination, I saw myself. I saw Alice. I saw the strength that ran through our family, despite everything. And I knew what I had to do. Taking a deep breath, I pulled out my phone and dialed Alice's number. It was time to face the past and forge a new future, for all of us. The office felt like a pressure cooker, tension thick in the air as I stared down Ethan across my desk. His gaunt face was a stark reminder of his illness, but the fire in his eyes burned as bright as ever. "You can't be serious," I hissed, gripping the edge of my desk to steady myself. "After everything, you have the audacity to come here and demand this?" Ethan leaned forward, his voice low and urgent. "Emma, please, you have to understand. I'm dying. I need to know Alice and EJ will be taken care of." "And that's my responsibility, how?" I shot back, fury rising in my chest. "You made your choices, Ethan. You and Alice both." He ran a hand through his thinning hair, frustration etched on his face. "I know I have no right to ask, but—" "You're damn right you don't." I cut him off. "You blamed me for years, Ethan. Made me feel like I was less of a woman because we couldn't have children. And now you want me to take care of your love child?" Ethan's face crumpled. "It wasn't like that. I was scared, Emma. Scared of failing as a father, scared of the future. I lashed out at you because it was easier than facing my own fears." I laughed bitterly. "And that makes it okay. You destroyed our marriage, Ethan. You and Alice both." "I know," he whispered, "and I'll regret it for the rest of my life, which, as it turns out, isn't very long." A pang of sympathy shot through me, quickly squashed by years of pent-up anger. "What do you want from me, Ethan?" He took a deep breath. "I want you to let Alice and EJ move into the house. It's big enough for all of you. You could be a family again." I stared at him, incredulous. "A family? Are you out of your mind? I have a family, Ethan. Mark and Lucy are my family now. But EJ is your blood, Emma. Your nephew. Don't you want to know him?" The words hit me like a physical blow. I thought of Lucy, fiercely defending her cousin at school, of the little boy with Ethan's eyes and Alice's smile. Despite everything, a part of me did want to know him. But the cost was too high. "I can't," I said, my voice breaking. "I won't uproot my life, my daughter's life, for this. It's too much, Ethan." His face hardened. "Then I'm sorry, Emma, but I have no choice. I'm going to fight you for the house. It's rightfully mine, and I'll prove it in court if I have to." Panic gripped me. "You wouldn't dare." "Watch me," he growled, standing up. "I may not have much time left, but I'll use every second to make sure Alice and EJ are provided for, even if it means taking everything from you." As he stormed out of my office, I collapsed into my chair, my mind reeling. How had it come to this? How had my life spiraled so out of control in just a matter of days? My phone buzzed. A text from Mark. "Everything okay? You've been at the office late all week." Guilt washed over me. I hadn't told Mark about Ethan's visit, about his threats. I'd been trying to handle it all on my own, just like I always did. But as I stared at the message, I realized I couldn't do this alone anymore. I needed Mark. I needed my family. With shaking hands, I dialed his number. "Mark, can you come to the office? There's something I need to tell you." As I waited for him to arrive, I steeled myself for the conversation ahead. Whatever happened next, whatever Ethan threw at us, we'd face it together. Because that's what real family does. And I'd be damned if I let Ethan take that away from me again. The doorbell rang, shattering the fragile peace of our Sunday afternoon. Mark and I exchanged a look of dread. We knew who it was. "I'll get it," I said, squeezing Mark's hand. "Stay with Lucy." I took a deep breath and opened the door. There stood Ethan and Alice, looking like ghosts from my past come to haunt me. "Emma," Ethan began, his voice raspy, "we need to talk." I stood my ground, blocking the entrance. "There's nothing to talk about, Ethan. I told you at the office, I'm not giving up this house." Alice stepped forward, her eyes pleading. "Please, Emma, just hear us out, for EJ's sake." The mention of my nephew sent a pang through my heart, but I steeled myself. "You don't get to use that child as a bargaining chip." "Mommy?" Lucy's voice came from behind me. "Who's at the door?" I turned to see my daughter standing there, curiosity etched on her face. Mark appeared behind her, his expression a mix of concern and determination. "Lucy, honey, go back inside," I said gently, but it was too late. Ethan's eyes widened as he took in the sight of my daughter. You have a child?" The shock in his voice ignited a fire in me. "Yes, Ethan. I have a daughter, a family, a life that doesn't include you or your drama." Alice gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "But how?" I thought. "You thought wrong," I snapped. "Both of you did. You blamed me for years, made me feel like less of a woman, and now you have the audacity to come here and demand my home?" Mark stepped forward, placing a protective hand on my shoulder. "I think it's time for you both to leave." Ethan's face contorted with a mix of emotions: anger, confusion, and something that looked almost like regret. "This changes nothing, Emma. I still have a right to that house, for Alice and EJ." "You have no rights here," Mark said, his voice low and dangerous. "This is our home, our family. And if you don't leave now, I'll call the police." For a moment, I thought Ethan might lunge at Mark, but then his shoulders sagged, the fight draining out of him. "Emma," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I'm dying. I just want to make things right." I felt a lump form in my throat, but I swallowed it down. "You can't make this right, Ethan. Some things can't be fixed." Alice stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "What about EJ? He's your family, too." I looked at her, really looked at her for the first time in years. My little sister who had once been my best friend. Family doesn't betray each other, Alice. You both made your choices. Now you have to live with them. With that, I closed the door, shutting out the ghosts of my past. I turned to face Mark and Lucy, my real family, feeling a mix of relief and exhaustion. "Mommy?" Lucy asked, her voice small. "Was that my uncle?" I knelt down, pulling her into a hug. "It's complicated, sweetheart. But you don't need to worry about it." As I held my daughter, I caught Mark's eye over her shoulder. The love and support I saw there gave me strength. But even as I embraced my family, I couldn't shake the image of Ethan's defeated face, or the thought of the nephew I'd never known. The past and present collided in that moment, leaving me torn between the life I'd built and the family I'd left behind. As night fell, I found myself staring out the window, wondering if I'd made the right choice. And deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The letter arrived on a crisp autumn morning, its official seal mocking me from the kitchen counter. I knew what it contained before I even opened it, Ethan's final attempt to claim what was never his. Mark found me an hour later, still staring at the unopened envelope. "Emma," he said softly, "whatever it is, we'll face it together." His words gave me the courage to tear it open. As I read, my hands began to shake. "He's suing us," I whispered. "Ethan's suing for the house. He claims it was part of our original divorce settlement." Mark's face hardened. "That's impossible. We have the deed. I know, but—" My voice broke. "He's dying, Mark. This is his last-ditch effort to provide for Alice and EJ. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Emma, it's Sarah. Ethan's old assistant. There's something you need to know. Can we meet?" An hour later, I sat across from Sarah in a quiet cafe, my heart pounding. "Ethan lied," she said without preamble, "about everything." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "What do you mean?" Sarah took a deep breath. "The affair with Alice, it wasn't what you think. Alice came to the office that day to confront Ethan about his gambling debts. He'd been embezzling company funds to cover them. I felt the blood drain from my face, but I saw them together." "You saw what Ethan wanted you to see," Sarah explained. "He staged it, knowing you'd divorce him. It was his way out, to avoid facing the consequences of his actions." My mind reeled. All these years, the pain, the self-doubt. And Alice. EJ. Sarah's eyes filled with sympathy. Alice agreed to play along to protect the family name. But EJ, Emma, EJ isn't Ethan's son. He's Alice's from a previous relationship. Ethan is sterile. He always was. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Ethan's cruel words about my supposed infertility echoed in my mind, all lies. I left the cafe in a daze, my feet carrying me to the one place I knew I needed to go, Alice's apartment. She opened the door, surprise etched on her face. "Emma, what are you?" "Is it true?" I cut her off. "About Ethan? About EJ?" Alice's face crumpled. In that moment, she wasn't my betrayer. She was my little sister again, scared and vulnerable. "I'm so sorry, Emma. I wanted to tell you so many times, but Ethan..." I pulled her into a fierce hug, years of hurt and anger melting away. "It's okay," I whispered. "It's over now." Later that evening, I sat with Mark and Lucy, explaining everything. Lucy's eyes widened with each revelation. "So, EJ is really my cousin?" she asked. I nodded, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. "Yes, sweetheart, and I think it's time we all got to know him." Mark squeezed my hand. "What about Ethan's lawsuit?" I took a deep breath. I'm going to drop it, all of it. The house, the resentment, the past. It's time to build something new. The next day, I called my lawyer and had him draw up new papers. The house would be put in a trust for EJ's future, with Alice as the trustee. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. As I watched Lucy and EJ play in the backyard, their laughter filling the air, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The ghosts of my past no longer haunted me. Instead, I saw the promise of a future, one filled with family, love, and second chances. Ethan's betrayal had nearly broken me, but it had also led me here, to a life richer and more fulfilling than I could have imagined. As I joined Mark on the porch, his arm wrapping around me, I knew that this moment, this family, was worth every tear, every struggle. The sun set on my old life, and I welcomed the dawn of a new chapter, one where forgiveness, compassion, and love would light the way forward.
Nora, I need you to promise me something, Eli whispered, his grip weak but insistent. I leaned closer, my heart racing. The hospital room's sterile smell faded as I focused on my husband's pale face. Anything, my love. What is it? Take care of the boys and don't let them lose themselves. His words hit me like a punch to the gut. I squeezed his hand, forcing a smile. Of course I will. But you'll be there too, Eli. We'll do it together. He shook his head, a sad smile playing on his lips. We both know that's not true, Nora. Promise me. I promise, I choked out, tears blurring my vision. Eli's eyes closed, his breathing shallow. The monitor's steady beep became a haunting rhythm, marking the precious seconds we had left. My name is Nora, and this was the moment my world shattered. I stood there, numb, as doctors rushed in. Their voices faded to a dull roar as I watched them work on Eli. It had all happened so fast. The diagnosis, the rapid decline, and now, this. Time of death, 3:47 p.m., a voice announced. I felt a hand on my shoulder and turned to CDR. Patel, her eyes filled with sympathy. I'm so sorry, Nora. We did everything we could. I nodded mechanically, unable to form words. My mind raced, thinking of our sons, Jasper and Caleb. How would I tell them? How could I possibly keep my promise to Eli when I felt so lost myself? As if summoned by my thoughts, the door burst open. Jasper strode in, his face a mask of anger and grief.
Mom.
What happened? Why didn't you call me sooner? I reached for him, but he brushed past me to Eli's bedside. Dad? Dad, come on, wake up. Jasper, I said softly, touching his arm. He's gone, sweetheart. I'm so sorry. He whirled on me, eyes blazing. This is your fault. You should have made him go to the doctor sooner. You should have. That's enough, a quiet voice interrupted. Caleb stood in the doorway, his artist's hands clenched at his sides. This is a mom's fault, Jasper. You know that. Jasper's shoulders slumped, the fight draining out of him. He collapsed into a chair, head in his hands. I can't believe he's gone. I moved to comfort him, but Caleb beat me to it. He knelt beside his brother, one hand on Jasper's back. I know, Jas. I can't either. Watching them, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe I could keep my promise to Eli after all. Maybe we could get through this together. But then Jasper looked up, his eyes hard. What happens now? With the house, the money, everything. And just like that, the moment shattered. I stared at my eldest son, shocked by his questions so soon after his father's death. Jasper, that's not important right now. We need to. Not important, he scoffed. Dad worked his whole life for us. We deserve to know what he left behind. Caleb stood up, disgust evident on his face. Are you serious right now? Dad just died, and you're worried about money? Jasper rose to face his brother. Someone has to think practically. We can't all be starving artists like you, Caleb. Stop it, both of you, I said firmly, stepping between them. This isn't the time or place. We need to support each other, not fight. But as I looked at their faces, Jasper's calculating, Caleb's hurt, I realized this was just the beginning. Eli's last words echoed in my mind. Don't let them lose themselves. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. We'll discuss everything later. For now, let's focus on saying goodbye to your father. As we gathered around Eli's bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that our family was balanced on a knife's edge. One wrong move, and everything could fall apart. I placed my hand on Eli's still chest, my wedding ring glinting under the harsh hospital lights. "I'll keep my promise," I whispered, "no matter what it takes." Little did I know just how much that promise would cost me in the days to come. As we left the hospital, the weight of responsibility settled on my shoulders. I was a widow, a mother, and now the keeper of secrets that could tear our family apart. But I was also a fighter, and I would do whatever it took to honor Eli's last wish and keep our family together, even if it meant facing the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of our seemingly perfect life. The tension in the room was palpable as I unfolded the crisp legal document. Jasper's eyes bored into me, his jaw clenched. Caleb sat quietly, his gaze darting between his brother and me. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for woes to come. "I'll read the key points of your father's will," I began, my voice steadier than I felt. "The family home and the majority of our savings are left to me, to manage as I see fit." Jasper's fist clenched on the armrest. I continued before he could interrupt. "For you boys, there's a modest trust fund. It's designed to help with education or starting a business, but it's not substantial." "That's it." Jasper exploded, leaping to his feet. "After everything Dad built, that's all we get?" I met his gaze, unflinching. "Your father worked hard to provide for us, Jasper. He wanted to ensure we'd be taken care of, but also that you'd make your own way in the world." Caleb spoke up, his voice soft. "It makes sense, Jazz. Mom needs security, and we're young. We can build our own lives." Jasper rounded on his brother. "Of course you'd say that. You don't care about money, mister. Starving artist. Some of us have ambition." "Ambition." Caleb's eyes flashed. "Is that what you call wanting a handout?" "Enough," I interjected, stepping between them. "This is exactly what your father wanted to avoid. He believed in both of you, in your abilities to succeed on your own merits." Jasper scoffed.
"Right.
"So he leaves everything to you, and we get scraps. How is that fair?" I felt my patience wearing thin. "Life isn't always fair, Jasper. Your father trusted me to make the right decisions for this family. If you need help, I'm here. But I won't simply hand over a fortune you haven't earned." "You're unbelievable," Jasper spat. "Dad's barely cold, and you're already playing the stern matriarch. I bet you influenced him to write the will this way." The accusation stung, but I held my ground. "That's enough. Your father made his own decisions. I'm honoring his wishes, whether you like it or not." Caleb stood, placing a hand on my shoulder. "Mom's right, Jazz. This isn't helping anyone. We should be grateful for what we have, not fighting over money." Jasper's laugh was bitter. "Oh, spare me the saintly act, Caleb. You're just happy because you know Mom will keep funding your little art projects. Some of us have real goals." I watched the hurt flash across Caleb's face and felt my anger rising. "That's unfair, Jasper. Your brother's work is valuable, even if it's not measured in dollars. Your father was proud of both of you for different reasons." "Well, he had a funny way of showing it," Jasper muttered. He paced the room, running a hand through his hair. "What am I supposed to tell Savannah? We had plans, big plans." I sighed, remembering Eli's warnings about Jasper's girlfriend. "Your relationship isn't dependent on your inheritance, Jasper. If Savannah truly loves you—" "Don't," he cut me off. "Don't you dare lecture me about love. You have no idea what Savannah and I have." The room fell silent, the weight of unspoken words hanging heavy between us. I looked at my sons, Jasper, seething with resentment, and Caleb, a mix of sadness and resignation on his face. How had we come to this? "Listen," I said softly, "I know this is hard. We're all grieving, and emotions are running high. But we need to stick together. Your father wanted us to support each other, not tear ourselves apart over money." Jasper's shoulders slumped, some of the fight leaving him. I had plans, Mom. I thought I'd be able to start my own business, make Dad proud." I moved to him, placing a hand on his arm. "You still can, sweetheart. The trust fund is there to help you get started. And I'm here to support you, always. But it has to be earned, not handed to you." He shrugged off my touch. Whatever. I need some air. Without another word, he stormed out of the room. Caleb and I stood in silence for a moment. He'll come around, Mom, Caleb said finally. He's just hurting. I nodded, hoping he was right. I know. I wish your father was here. He'd know what to say. Caleb hugged me, and I felt tears prick my eyes. You're doing great, Mom. Dad would be proud of how you're handling this. As we broke apart, I caught sight of Eli's photo on the mantel. His kind eyes seemed to bore into me, reminding me of his last words. Don't let them lose themselves. I hope you're right, Caleb, I whispered, because I have a feeling this is just the beginning of our troubles. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. A text from Jasper. This isn't over. Savannah and I won't stand for this. I showed it to Caleb, who shook his head. What are we going to do? I squared my shoulders, a plan already forming. Whatever it takes to keep this family together. Your father trusted me with that task, and I won't let him down. As Caleb left to start dinner, I sat heavily in Eli's old armchair. The weight of responsibility settled on me like a cloak. I had no idea what challenges lay ahead, but I knew one thing for certain. I would fight with everything I had to honor Eli's last wish and protect our family, even if it meant going to war with my own son. The doorbell chimed, its cheerful tone at odds with the tension that had settled over our home since the reading of Eli's will. I smoothed my shirt and took a deep breath before opening the door. Mom, I want you to meet Savannah, Jasper said, his arm around a stunning blonde woman. Savannah's smile was dazzling, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Mrs. Thompson, it's so lovely to finally meet you. Jasper's told me so much about you. I forced a smile, trying to ignore the warning bells ringing in my head. Please call me Nora. Come in, both of you. As they entered, I couldn't help but notice Savannah's designer outfit and the way her eyes darted around our modest living room, assessing everything. Jasper seemed oblivious, his face alight with pride as he watched her. Can I get you anything to drink? I offered, leading them to the couch. Just water for me, Savannah replied, her tone suggesting that anything else would be beneath her. I'm on a very strict diet. I bit back a retort and headed to the kitchen, where Caleb was making coffee. Is that her? He whispered, peering around the doorframe. I nodded, filling a glass with water. Be nice, I warned, for Jasper's sake. When we returned to the living room, Savannah was examining the family photos on the mantel. Oh, Jasper, she cooed, you are such an adorable child. It's a shame you don't have any recent professional photos. They'd look so much more polished. I saw Caleb's jaw clench, but he managed a polite smile as he set down the coffee tray. I like our family photos. They capture real moments. Savannah's laugh was like tinkling glass. Oh, of course. But don't you think it's time for something a bit more sophisticated? Especially now that Jasper is about to start his own business. I raised an eyebrow at my son. Oh, I didn't realize you had concrete plans, Jasper. He shifted uncomfortably. Well, I'm still working out the details. But Savannah's been really supportive and has some great connections. That's right, Savannah chimed in, her voice syrupy sweet. My father knows some wonderful investors. Of course, they usually prefer to work with people who have substantial assets of their own. The implication hung in the air, heavy and accusatory. I felt my patience wearing thin. Jasper has a trust fund, I said evenly. It's meant to help him get started in life, including business ventures. Savannah's smile never wavered. Oh, how quaint. But surely, as Eli's widow, you have access to more significant resources? I mean, Jasper is the eldest son. It's only natural that he'd want to continue his father's legacy in grand style. I saw Caleb tense beside me, ready to jump to my defense. But this was my battle to fight. Eli's legacy, I said slowly, meeting Savannah's gaze, was about more than money. It was about integrity, hard work, and family. Those are the values we cherish in this house. Savannah's eyes narrowed slightly. Of course. But surely you want Jasper to succeed? To have the best of everything. What I want, I replied, my voice firm, is for both my sons to find their own paths and build lives they can be proud of, not lives dictated by societal expectations or external pressures. The room fell silent. Jasper looked between Savannah and me, confusion and frustration warring on his face. "Mom," he started, but Savannah cut him off with a gentle touch on his arm. "It's all right, darling," she said, her voice dripping with false understanding. "I'm sure your mother will come around once she sees how successful you'll be. After all, what parent doesn't want the best for their child?" I felt my temper flare. The best isn't always the most expensive or flashy, Savannah. Sometimes it's the hard-won victories and the lessons learned along the way. Savannah's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing a flash of contempt before her saccharine smile returned. "Well, we all have different definitions of success, I suppose. Jasper, sweetheart, we should go. We don't want to be late for our dinner reservation." As they stood to leave, I caught a glimpse of the person Jasper used to be, uncertain, looking to me for guidance. But then Savannah's hand slipped into his, and his expression hardened. "We'll talk later, Mom," he said, his tone clipped. After they left, Caleb and I sat in stunned silence. "Well," Caleb finally said, "that was a disaster," I finished, rubbing my temples. "She's trouble, Mom. Can't Jasper see that?" I sighed, thinking of Eli's warning. Love, or what we think is love, can blind us to a lot of things. But you're right. She's not here for Jasper. She's here for what she thinks he can provide. Caleb leaned forward, his expression serious. "What are we going to do?" I stood, walking to the window to watch Jasper's car disappear down the street. "We fight for him, Caleb. We fight to remind him of who he really is, not who Savannah wants him to be." As I turned back to my younger son, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Eli had trusted me to keep our family together, to prevent our boys from losing themselves. It wouldn't be easy, especially with Savannah's influence, but I was ready for the challenge. "We'll start by showing Jasper that true success isn't measured in dollar signs," I said, a plan already forming in my mind. "And we'll make sure Savannah understands that this family isn't her personal piggy bank." Caleb nodded, a determined glint in his eye. "I'm with you, Mom. All the way." As we began to strategize, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a long and difficult battle. But with Eli's memory guiding me and Caleb by my side, I knew we stood a fighting chance. The war for Jasper's soul and our family's future had begun. The cafe bustled with the lunchtime crowd, but I barely noticed the noise. My eyes were fixed on the glittering diamond ring on Jasper's finger as he fidgeted nervously across the table.
"Mom,
"We have some news," he began, glancing at Savannah, who beamed triumphantly beside him. My heart sank. I forced a smile, already dreading what was coming. "What is it, sweetheart?" Savannah thrust her left hand forward, a massive diamond catching the light. "We're engaged," she squealed, her voice carrying across the cafe. I swallowed hard, fighting to keep my expression neutral. "That's quite a surprise. Congratulations." Jasper's face fell slightly at my lukewarm response. "Aren't you happy for us, Mom?" Before I could answer, Savannah jumped in. "Of course she is, darling. She's just shocked by how quickly you swept me off my feet." She turned to me, her eyes glinting. "It was so romantic, Nora. Jasper proposed at the country club, with a string quartet and everything." I raised an eyebrow at my son. "The country club? I didn't realize you were a member." Jasper shifted uncomfortably. "Well, Savannah's family are members. They've been very generous." "I see," I said, my tone carefully measured. "And when did all this happen?" "Just last night," Savannah gushed. "We couldn't wait to tell you. And of course, to start planning the wedding. It's going to be the event of the season." I felt a headache coming on. "That sounds expensive." Jasper leaned forward, his expression earnest. "That's actually why we wanted to talk to you, Mom. We were hoping, well, with Dad's estate and everything, we'll need to access some of the funds," Savannah finished bluntly. "For the wedding, of course, and to help us get started. Jasper's business plans are so exciting, and with the right investment. I held up a hand, cutting her off. Slow down, please. Jasper, can we talk privately for a moment? Savannah's smile faltered, but she recovered quickly. Of course. I'll just powder my nose. Don't talk about me too much while I'm gone. She sashayed away, leaving a cloud of expensive perfume in her wake. As soon as she was out of earshot, I leaned in close to Jasper. What are you doing? I hissed. You've known her for barely 2 months. Jasper's jaw set stubbornly. I love her, Mom. She understands me, supports my ambitions. Why can't you be happy for me? Because this isn't you, Jasper, I pleaded. Lavish proposals? Country clubs? What happened to the son who wanted to build his business from the ground up, to make his own way? Maybe I've grown up, he snapped. Maybe I've realized there's nothing wrong with wanting the finer things in life. Dad would have understood. The mention of Eli felt like a physical blow. Your father worked hard for everything he had. He didn't expect handouts or shortcuts. Jasper's eyes flashed. Is that what you think this is? A shortcut? I'm trying to secure our future, Mom. Savannah's connections could open doors for all of us. I shook my head, feeling the distance between us grow. And what does Savannah get out of this arrangement? What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm worried, Jasper. This is all happening so fast, and the way she talks about money. Stop. Jasper cut me off, his voice low and angry. I don't want to hear it. Savannah loves me for who I am, not what I have. But we do need your help to get started. It's my inheritance too, Mom. I have a right to it. Before I could respond, Savannah returned, sliding gracefully into her seat. Did I miss anything important? She asked, her tone innocent but her eyes sharp. Jasper took her hand, his expression hardening. Just filling Mom in on our plans. She's processing the news. Savannah's smile didn't waver. Of course, it's a lot to take in. But you'll help us, won't you, Nora? After all, family is everything. I looked between them, seeing the determination in Jasper's eyes and the calculation in Savannah's. In that moment, I made a decision. I'm sorry, I said firmly, but I can't give you access to the estate funds. The trusts are set up for specific purposes, and a lavish wedding isn't one of them. The silence that followed was deafening. Savannah's mask slipped for a moment, revealing a flash of fury before she composed herself. Jasper stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. I can't believe this. You're really going to stand in the way of my happiness? Jasper, please. No, he cut me off. I've heard enough. Come on, Savannah. We're leaving. As they stormed out of the cafe, leaving me alone at the table, I felt a mix of emotions wash over me. Grief for the son I felt I was losing, anger at Savannah's manipulations, and a deep, gnawing fear that I was failing to keep my promise to Eli. But beneath it all, a steely resolve began to form. I wouldn't let Savannah destroy our family or lead Jasper astray. As I gathered my things to leave, I made a silent vow. I would fight for my son, for our family's legacy, and for the values Eli and I had always held dear. The battle lines were drawn, and I was ready for war. The annual Thompson family barbecue had always been a joyous occasion, but this year, tension hung in the air like a storm cloud. I stood at the grill, mechanically flipping burgers, my mind racing with worry about the inevitable confrontation looming. Caleb appeared at my side, his voice low. Mom, are you sure inviting Jasper and Savannah was a good idea? I sighed, wiping my brow. They're family, Caleb. We can't shut them out, no matter how difficult things have become. As if on cue, a sleek sports car pulled into the driveway. Jasper emerged, looking uncomfortable in an outfit far too formal for a backyard barbecue. Savannah stepped out behind him, her designer sundress and oversized sunglasses a stark contrast to the casual attire of our relatives. Showtime, Caleb muttered, squeezing my arm supportively before moving to greet them. I watched as Savannah air-kissed Caleb's cheeks, her eyes already scanning the gathering. Jasper hung back, his posture tense. When his gaze met mine, I saw a flicker of the son I knew, uncertain, almost apologetic. But then Savannah's hand slipped into his, and his expression hardened. The next hour passed in a haze of forced small talk and thinly veiled tension. I could feel Savannah's eyes on me, calculating her next move. It came as I was serving dessert. "Nora, darling," Savannah's voice rang out, silencing the chatter around us. "I've been meaning to ask, have you given any more thought to our little chat about the wedding funds?" I froze, acutely aware of every eye turning towards us. "Savannah, this isn't the time or place." "Oh, but when is?" she pressed, her tone sickeningly sweet. "You've been avoiding us for weeks. I think the family deserves to know how you're holding Jasper back from his potential." Jasper shifted uncomfortably. "Savannah, maybe we should." "No, Jasper," she cut him off. "Your mother needs to understand what she's doing. Do you all know," she addressed the gathering, "that Nora is refusing to release funds that rightfully belong to Jasper? Funds that could help him start his business, secure our future." A murmur rippled through the crowd. I felt my cheeks burn with a mix of anger and embarrassment. "That's not true," I said firmly. "Jasper has access to his trust fund, which was set up specifically to help him get started in life. What he's asking for goes far beyond that." Savannah's eyes narrowed. "And who are you to decide what he deserves? Eli would be ashamed of how you're treating his son." The mention of Eli's name was the final straw. I opened my mouth to retort, but Caleb beat me to it. "That's enough," he said, his voice quiet but steely. "You have no right to speak for our father, Savannah. You didn't know him." Savannah turned on him, her mask slipping to reveal the venom beneath. "Oh, the artist speaks. Tell me, Caleb, how does it feel to mooch off your mother while your brother tries to make something of himself?" Gasps echoed around the yard. Caleb stood his ground unflinching. "I work hard for everything I have. And unlike some people, I don't measure success by the size of my bank account or the brand of my clothes." "How dare you?" Savannah shrieked. "Jasper, are you going to let them talk to me like this?" All eyes turned to Jasper, who looked torn between loyalty to Savannah and the family he'd known his whole life. I don't." "Choose, Jasper," Savannah demanded. "It's me or them. Your future or your past." The silence that followed was deafening. I watched my son, my heart breaking as I saw the conflict play out across his face. Finally, he spoke. "I'm sorry, Mom," he said softly, "but Savannah's right. You're holding me back. I can't keep living in Dad's shadow, trying to live up to your impossible standards." The words hit me like a physical blow. I stumbled back, steadying myself against the picnic table. "Jasper, please." But he was already turning away, Savannah's triumphant smile gleaming in the afternoon sun. "We're leaving," she announced. "And don't expect an invitation to the wedding. Clearly, you're not supportive of our happiness." As they stormed off, leaving a wake of shocked relatives behind them, I felt my world crumbling. Caleb's arm around my shoulders was the only thing keeping me upright. "It's okay, Mom," he whispered. "We'll figure this out." But as I watched Jasper's car disappear down the street, I wasn't so sure. Eli's last words echoed in my mind. "Don't let them lose themselves." I'd failed him. I'd failed Jasper. As the stunned guests began to disperse, murmuring apologies and awkward goodbyes, I made a silent vow. This wasn't over. I wouldn't give up on Jasper, no matter what it took. Savannah may have won this battle, but the war for my son's soul was far from over. I turned to Caleb, my resolve strengthening. "We need a plan," I said. "And I think it's time we did some digging into Savannah's past. Something tells me there's more to her story than she's letting on." Caleb nodded, a determined glint in his eye. "I'm with you, Mom. All the way." As we began to clean up the remnants of the disastrous barbecue, I felt a strange mix of despair and determination. The path ahead was unclear, but one thing was certain: I would fight for my family with everything I had. Eli's legacy and Jasper's future depended on it. The manila envelope felt heavy in my hands as I stared at the return address of the law firm. My heart raced as I tore it open, dreading what I might find inside. As I scanned the legal jargon, 2 words jumped out at me: contest and will. My worst fears were confirmed. Jasper and Savannah were taking legal action to challenge Eli's will. I sank into my chair, the room spinning. How had it come to this? My own son, willing to drag our family through a legal battle for money he hadn't earned. Mom, Caleb's voice snapped me back to reality. What's wrong? I handed him the letter wordlessly. His face darkened as he read. We need to confront them, he said, his voice tight with anger. This has gone too far. I nodded, steeling myself for the battle ahead. Call Jasper. Tell him we need to meet. All of us. An hour later, we sat in tense silence around the dining room table. Jasper refused to meet my eyes, while Savannah wore a smug smile that made my blood boil. I assume you know why we're here. I began, my voice steadier than I felt. Savannah leaned forward, her eyes glinting. To finally see reason and give Jasper what he deserves? I ignored her, focusing on my son. Jasper, look at me. Is this really what you want? To tear our family apart over money? He shifted uncomfortably. It's not just about the money, Mom. It's about fairness. Dad would have wanted. Don't you dare presume to know what your father would have wanted. I cut him off, my voice sharp. Eli worked hard for everything we have. He believed in earning your way, not taking shortcuts. Savannah scoffed. Please. Eli was just too short-sighted to see Jasper's potential. Unlike you, we have ambition. Caleb slammed his hand on the table, making us all jump. Ambition? Is that what you call manipulating my brother and trying to steal from our family? How dare you? Savannah shrieked. Jasper, are you going to let them talk to me like this? But Jasper remained silent, his face a mask of conflicting emotions. I took a deep breath, centering myself. Before this goes any further, there's something you both need to see. I pulled out a stack of documents I'd gathered over the past weeks. Bank statements, credit reports, and a detailed history of Savannah's past relationships and financial dealings. What is this? Jasper asked, his voice wary. The truth, I replied, spreading the papers across the table. About Savannah's past and her real motivations for being with you. Savannah's face paled as she recognized some of the documents. Where did you get those? That's private information. I met her gaze steadily. When you threaten my family, nothing is off limits. Did you really think I wouldn't investigate the woman trying to manipulate my son? Jasper leaned forward, his eyes scanning the papers. Mom, what are you talking about? Savannah has a history, Jasper. A pattern of attaching herself to wealthy men, draining their resources, and moving on to the next target. She's done it 3 times before you. The color drained from Jasper's face as he turned to Savannah. Is this true? She laughed nervously. Of course not, darling. Your mother is clearly desperate. She's making things up to turn you against me. But I could see the doubt creeping into Jasper's eyes. Then how do you explain these bank transfers? The maxed out credit cards in other men's names. Savannah's mask finally cracked. Her eyes narrowed as she hissed. You have no idea what I've been through. I deserve a good life, and I'll do whatever it takes to get it. The room fell silent as the weight of her admission sank in. Jasper stared at her, shock and betrayal written across his face. Jasper, I said softly, reaching for his hand. I know you thought you were in love, but this isn't love. It's manipulation. He pulled away, standing abruptly. I need some air. As he stormed out, Savannah turned on me, her face contorted with rage. You've ruined everything. I'll make you pay for this. Caleb stepped between us. I think it's time for you to leave, Savannah. For good. As she gathered her things, spewing threats and insults, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. The battle was won, but at what cost? I found Jasper in the backyard, sitting on the old swing set where he and Caleb had played as children. He looked up as I approached, his eyes red-rimmed. I'm so sorry, Mom, he whispered. I've been such a fool. I sat beside him, wrapping an arm around his shoulders. We all make mistakes, sweetheart. The important thing is learning from them. He nodded, leaning into me. I don't know how to fix this. I've hurt you, Caleb, our whole family. We'll figure it out together, I assured him. That's what family does. As we sat there, the weight of the past months finally lifting, I thought of Eli. I hoped, wherever he was, he could see that our family was finding its way back to each other. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There were wounds to heal, trust to rebuild. But as I held my son, I felt a glimmer of hope. We had weathered the storm and emerged stronger for it. The real work of healing our family was just beginning, but for the first time in months, I felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, we would honor Eli's memory and forge a new path forward, one built on love, understanding, and the unbreakable bonds of family. The coffee shop buzzed with mid-morning chatter, but I barely noticed as I stared at the file Miriam had just handed me. My hands trembled slightly as I flipped through the pages, each revelation more shocking than the last. "I can't believe you found all this," I whispered, looking up at my friend's grim face. Miriam leaned forward, her voice low. "It wasn't easy, Nora. Savannah's been careful, but she's left a trail. 3 wealthy families, 3 broken engagements, and a lot of missing money." I shook my head, still processing the information. "How did we not see this sooner?" "She's good at what she does," Miriam replied. "But everyone slips up eventually. The question is, what are you going to do with this information?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from Jasper. "We need to talk. Can you meet me at the house?" I showed Miriam the message, a mix of hope and dread churning in my stomach. I guess I'm about to find out. As I pulled into the driveway of our family home, I saw Jasper's car already parked. My son stood on the porch, looking more like the boy I raised than the angry young man he'd become in recent months. "Mom," he said as I approached, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm so sorry. For everything." I pulled him into a hug, feeling his shoulders shake as he finally let go of the facade he'd been maintaining. "It's okay, sweetheart. We're going to fix this." Inside, we sat at the kitchen table where we'd shared so many family meals. Jasper's eyes widened as I placed Miriam's file in front of him. "What's this?" he asked warily. "The truth about Savannah," I replied gently. "And it's worse than we thought." As Jasper read through the documents, his face cycled through a range of emotions: disbelief, anger, and finally, a deep sadness. "I've been such a fool," he whispered, pushing the file away. How could I not see it? I reached across the table, taking his hand. "Love can blind us, Jasper. But it's not too late to make things right." He nodded, squeezing my hand. "What do we do now?" Before I could answer, the front door burst open. Savannah stormed in, her face a mask of fury. "What is this?" she shrieked, waving a piece of paper. "A restraining order? You think you can just throw me away like trash?" Jasper stood, placing himself between Savannah and me. "It's over, Savannah. I know everything." She laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "You don't know anything. You're nothing without me, Jasper. A pathetic mama's boy who can't stand on his own 2 feet." I watched my son's back stiffen, but his voice remained calm. "That's where you're wrong. I'm a Thompson. We don't need to steal or manipulate to succeed. We work hard and earn our place in the world." Savannah's eyes narrowed as she turned to me. "This is your doing, isn't it? You've poisoned him against me." "No, Savannah," I said, standing to join Jasper. "You did that all on your own." Her composure cracked, desperation seeping through. "You can't do this to me. I'll ruin you. I'll tell everyone how you mistreated me, how you tried to keep Jasper from his inheritance." "Go ahead," Jasper replied. "But first, you might want to take a look at this." He slid Miriam's file across the table. Savannah's face paled as she flipped through the pages. "How? Where did you get this?" she stammered. "It doesn't matter," I said firmly. "What matters is that it's over. You're going to leave my family alone, or we'll make sure every wealthy family in the state knows exactly who you are and what you've done." Savannah's shoulders slumped, the fight draining out of her. For a moment, I saw a glimpse of the scared, desperate woman behind the manipulative facade. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I had nothing. I was nobody. I just wanted a chance at a better life." Jasper's voice was gentle but firm. There are better ways, Savannah. Honest ways. I hope you find them, but it won't be with us. As Caleb escorted a defeated Savannah out, Jasper turned to me, his eyes brimming with unshed tears. I don't know how to thank you, Mom, for not giving up on me, even when I gave you every reason to. I pulled him close, feeling the weight of the past months finally lifting. That's what family does, sweetheart. We fight for each other, no matter what. As we stood there, I thought of Eli. I could almost feel his presence, his approval warming the room. We had weathered the storm, emerged stronger, and kept our promise to him. What now? Jasper asked, his voice muffled against my shoulder. I smiled, a plan already forming. Now we rebuild. Together. As a family. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There were wounds to heal, trust to rebuild. But as I held my son, surrounded by the memories of our family's love and strength, I knew we would face whatever challenges came our way. Eli's last words echoed in my mind. Don't let them lose themselves. We had come close, but in the end, we had found our way back to who we truly were. And that, I realized, was the greatest victory of all. The gallery buzzed with excitement, a sea of well-dressed patrons admiring the vibrant canvases that adorned the walls. I stood in the center of it all, my heart swelling with pride as I watched Caleb confidently discuss his work with an influential art critic. He's really made it, hasn't he? Jasper's voice came from beside me, a hint of awe in his tone. I turned to my eldest son, noting the genuine happiness in his eyes.
He has.
And so have you, in your own way. Jasper nodded, his gaze drifting to the small business cards he held, advertising his new ethical investment firm. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm glad things turned out the way they did. Even the hard parts. I squeezed his arm, remembering the tumultuous journey that had brought us here. Your father would be so proud of both of you. As if summoned by our conversation, Caleb joined us, his face flushed with excitement. Mom, Jazz, you won't believe it. The Guggenheim wants to feature my work in their next exhibition. Jasper pulled his brother into a bear hug, their laughter drawing smiles from nearby guests. I always knew you had it in you, little bro. As I watched my son celebrate, I felt a presence beside me. Miriam handed me a glass of champagne, her eyes twinkling. You did it, Nora. You kept your promise to Eli. I took a sip, letting the bubbles dance on my tongue. We did it together. I couldn't have gotten through this without you, Miriam. She waved off my gratitude. That's what friends are for. Now, are you ready for the surprise? Before I could ask what she meant, Caleb clinked his glass, calling for attention. Everyone, if I could have your attention, please. There's someone very special I'd like to honor tonight. The crowd hushed as Caleb gestured for me to join him. Confused, I made my way to his side. This woman, Caleb began, his voice thick with emotion, is not just my mother. She's the backbone of our family, the one who held us together when we were falling apart. Mom, this is for you. He pulled a cloth off a nearby easel, revealing a stunning portrait. I gasped, recognizing myself and Eli, painted in Caleb's distinctive style. We were seated on our old porch swing, surrounded by swirls of color that seemed to pulse with life and love. It's called Legacy of Love, Caleb explained, because that's what you and Dad gave us. A foundation of love that could weather any storm. Tears blurred my vision as Jasper joined us, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. We owe you everything, Mom. Thank you for not giving up on us. The gallery erupted in applause, but I barely heard it. In that moment, I was transported back to Eli's hospital room, hearing his final request, take care of the boys, and don't let them lose themselves. As I hugged my sons, I knew I had fulfilled that promise. We had all lost our way for a time, but in the end, we had found our way back to each other and to the values that truly mattered. Later that night, as the last guests trickled out, I found myself alone in front of Caleb's portrait. I traced the lines of Eli's face, remembering the warmth of his smile, the strength of his embrace. We did it, my love, I whispered. Our boys are going to be just fine. A gentle breeze rustled through the gallery, carrying with it the scent of Eli's favorite aftershave. For a moment, I could almost feel his presence, his approval warming me from within. Jasper and Caleb appeared on either side of me, each taking one of my hands. "What do you say we head home?" Jasper suggested. "I think this calls for a family dinner. Maybe we could make Dad's famous lasagna?" Caleb grinned. "Only if Mom promises not to burn the garlic bread this time." I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in years.
Deal.
"But you're both on dish duty." As we left the gallery, arm in arm, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. We had weathered the storm of grief, greed, and betrayal, and emerged stronger for it. Eli's legacy lived on, not in material possessions or grand gestures, but in the love that bound us together. In the end, that was the greatest inheritance he could have left us. The cool night air kissed my cheeks as we walked to the car, the stars twinkling overhead. I looked at my sons, Jasper, once lost but now found, his ambition tempered by wisdom, and Caleb, his talent finally recognized, his compassion a beacon for us all. In that moment, I felt a profound sense of peace wash over me. We had come full circle, from the depths of loss to the heights of redemption. And though the road had been hard, I wouldn't have changed a single step. As we drove home, the city lights blurring into a tapestry of possibility, I silently renewed my vow to Eli. I would continue to nurture the legacy of love we had built together, guiding our family toward a future bright with promise and rich with the values we held dear. The journey wasn't over. It never truly would be. But with the strength of our bond and the lessons we'd learned, I knew that whatever life threw our way, we would face it as we always had, together, as a family. And in that knowledge, I found a joy so pure, so complete, that it filled every corner of my being. This, I realized, was the true meaning of Eli's last wish. Not just to keep the boys from losing themselves, but to help us all find our way back to what really mattered. As we pulled into our driveway, the porch light a welcoming beacon, I smiled. We were home, in every sense of the word. And the best was yet to come.